use your powers for evil.
Your evil is my good.
Again, everyone, welcome back to the 150th episode of Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. We've done 150 of these things. I'm Charles Skaggs, one of your co-hosts here at Next Stop Everywhere, ready to talk some David Tennant era Doctor Who with my long-suffering partner in time, the man who's been with me ever since episode 1 and beyond and before, and the guy you could blame for getting me into podcasting in the first place, Jesse Jackson. Hi, Jesse. How are you today?
I am great, Charles. It is good to be here. It does seem a little strange that we've hit 150 episodes after, how many years did you count? Has it been three or four?
Well, this is our 5th anniversary episode.
Fifth,
because we actually turned, this is August 1st, 2019, and we turned 5 years old just 2 days from now, on August 3rd. So the timing worked out brilliantly.
Absolutely.
So hopefully we can get this posted just in time for the 5th anniversary.
Yes. So I cannot tell you how thrilled I am that we have a TARDIS filled with companions tonight to talk about a companion-filled episode.
Well, we will once we bring them in.
Yes. So you want to introduce them?
We can try to do that. Let me fire up the old Subwave network, and we'll just play with this here. Do a little tweaking. Do. Okay, so can anyone hear me out there? Hello. The Subwave network is open. You should You should be able to hear my voice. Is anyone there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Is this Christine Peruski?
It is.
Well, hi, Christine. How you doing?
I am good.
Ready to talk some Doctor Who tonight?
Mm-hmm.
Here, episode 150 of Next Stop Everywhere.
I am.
Okay, well, good. Let's see who else we can bring in via the old Subwave network that magically will appear in post-production, whatever. All right, so coming in next, Zan Sprouse, my co-host with the most from Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. Welcome to Next Stop Everywhere once again.
Hey, Charles. Is this thing on?
It's on. We can hear you. Hi, Zan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm very excited to be podcasting with Zan. Christine and I go way back. We have podcasted many times together, but this is the first time I've been able to talk to Zan, and I am a happy companion.
I'm very excited to talk to all of you. I've talked Doctor Who with just Charles, but that's it. So this is great to meet everybody and talk to everyone and see how you pros do it. I'm just along for the ride on this Ghostwood train, so it's nice to.
It's adorable. It's
just watching and listening to you all.
It's adorable that you think we're pros. Jesse may be. Jesse, but
very adorable.
Obviously, I'm not.
You all look like you just kind of know what you're doing and stuff, and I'm so impressed by all that.
I have absolutely no idea what I'm
No,
doing.
I could probably
She sees us all wearing headphones.
yeah,
that's
exactly.
it.
Yeah,
It's the headphones and those awesome looking microphones that I just do not have. So
yeah. Well, you can see my awesome looking microphone, which I don't have. So
I'm
it's,
just
it's
looking
cool.
behind you with your action figures. I don't even see microphones.
You like my little display there?
I do. I like your action figures.
All right.
Well,
So
I'm going to pull back the curtain a bit. This is a Guitar Hero microphone. It's not that awesome.
I have that. I can do that.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
all right. So that's 4 of us, but I think we kind of need a couple more. So let's reach out. Right next, we'll bring in John Takis. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere.
Hey, Charles, happy anniversary.
Thank you so much, my good sir. Appreciate you coming back on the show. Ready to join us here, kind of help outnumber, the partners in time, because it looks like the special guest companions are going to outnumber us, Jesse and me, this time. We'll see. And
John, it is really great to visit with you as well. We have not gotten to podcast, but I know you've been a guest companion and done a great job. So excited to be able to talk a little Doctor Who with you.
Sounds great. I'll tell you what, I'm grateful that you guys even thought about me, because I know you guys have all done numerous podcasts, and I've just guest hosted on yours. So thank you so much.
All right, so let's bring in our 6th, but not least, member of tonight's discussion. Let's bring in, all the way from Milan, Italy, DJ Nick. Hi, Nick. How you doing?
Buonasera, buonasera. Is this thing on? Yes, it is. Okay, well, hey, guys. It's great to hear from you all, and thank you so much for having me on.
And I've got to tell you that you get bonus points because you were the most flexible of scheduling as far as time zones go. So what time is it there for you?
It's going on to 20 past 1 in the morning.
Hats off to you.
Yes, cheers to
dedication.
Cheers to Nick, because he's doing this at 1 o'clock in the morning, you guys, our time.
So we got the gang all here, and we're excited. Charles, as you dropped off for a moment.
Yes, I did drop off because Skype.
And we are trying to use the cameras, which does use extra bandwidth. I know I sound like the mom. Charles always mocks me, but I'm like, when it's that many, it's better just to do voice. However, Charles, what are we talking about
Dad.
tonight? Yes.
Yes. So, all right, we're going to do this as best we can. We'll probably have to stitch this together, maybe in 5 or 6 chunks to make it fit and make it work. But, we'll do what we got to do. All right. So before I dropped off, I wanted to, just really happy that Nick joined us. And I want to thank everybody for being here, first and foremost, because all of you guys, you've been a part of the show, here and there, over the years and over the episodes. Some of you recently, some of you, a couple years back or whatever. But you've brought a lot to the show. And so here we are in the 150th episode, and I talked this over with Jesse, and we thought this was like a great idea to celebrate 150 episodes in 5 years of this silly little Doctor Who podcast.
Yeah, we also want to give a shout out to Karen Lindsay, who is here in spirit, and Ken Schaefer. Take a drink if you are playing the drinking game. Ken couldn't work out his schedule, but Ken has guest starred many times, and he and I always do the unofficial discussion after he listens to the episode. He and I, when we go to lunch, we have our own little Doctor Who conference. So a lot of other people that have been wonderful. We'll probably get through that toward the end, but I wanted to give a couple of shout outs to them to start out with.
Yeah, and that's fine. And might as well, we'll give a shout outs obviously to our listeners who have stuck by us and check us out on a semi-weekly basis all the time, and those that write in, like Holly from Wisconsin, or Paul from Australia, or Hannah Scarappa, a new listener that's been really great and very enthusiastic about the show. All kinds of people. We've had Fred Firestein, and just all kinds of people that have helped make Next Stop Everywhere just this really fun little Doctor Who podcast that we do. And it's great to reach out to all the Doctor Who fans. So thank you guys. Thank you, everyone. And so with all this self-congratulatory stuff out of the way, I guess, let's talk some Doctor Who, everybody. And so here, episode 150, let's talk The Stolen Earth / Journey's End, the 12th and 13th episode of Doctor Who Series 4 back from 2009. And written, of course, by Russell T Davies, directed by Graham Harper, who directed some great classic Doctor Who, including one of my favorite classic Doctor Who stories, The Caves of Androzani, the last Fifth Doctor story, where Peter Davison regenerated into Colin Baker, personal favorite of mine. But recently, or at least recent before this, he also directed the two-parter Army of Ghosts in Doomsday, that big tearjerker where you had Billie Piper trapped on the other side of a wall and in a different universe from her big sweet Babu, the 10th Doctor. So, very classic story there. And other than that, of course, this episode stars David Tennant and Catherine Tate as Donna Noble, and with a ton of guest companions in this story, which is probably why we're talking about this particular story at this particular time, if you haven't guessed the theme by now. Right, Jesse?
Absolutely, Charles. This, in fact, as I was watching the episode, this reminds me of our comic book roots, where you would have the big crossover.
Right.
Not just the Justice League episode, but, a Brave and Bold and World's Finest, and this, where you would have your superheroes team up together. And this was such a treat to see everyone who was of a significance in the Russell T. Davies era to make an appearance. Just makes this a pretty special two-parter.
Yeah, the CW could learn a thing or two from these two episodes about doing a proper crossover.
Yeah, I think so. And, hopefully they will, since they got that whole Crisis on Infinite Earths thing going on. That should be a lot of fun to talk about, maybe on another podcast. But, this one, we'll talk about some Doctor Who. All right, so this guest cast for this story, we get the introduction of Julian Bleach as Davros, who does a really good job as Davros, in my opinion, and obviously we're going to talk about him later on in our topics. He later appears, of course, in The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, a Peter Capaldi story. And then he was also on Torchwood as the Ghostmaker in Torchwood episode From Out of the Rain. And he was in the Sarah Jane Adventures as the Nightmare Man in that very same titled episode, The Nightmare Man. We also get the return of Billie Piper as Rose Tyler. John Barrowman as Captain Jack Harkness, of course. And we get Noel Clarke back as Mickey Smith. Freema Agyeman as Martha Jones. And, of course, the late, great Elisabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith. John Leeson as the voice of K9 makes a return, and as does Penelope Wilton as Harriet Jones, MP Flydell North.
Yes, we know who you are.
There you go. I was hoping I could tee that up for you so you can get the line in.
She looks tired, doesn't she?
Yes, she does.
Yeah, she does.
Very tired.
Yeah, she does. So we also get Bernard Crimmins as Wilfred Mott, one of my favorite characters from the Russell T Davies era. And Jacqueline King as Sylvia Noble, Camille Coduri as Jackie Tyler, Joa Ando as Francine Jones, the rather unlikable mother of Martha Jones, Eve Miles as Gwen Cooper, Gareth David Lloyd as Yanto Jones.
Very good, Charles. Very good.
Thank you. Does that meet your approval?
It does. Thanks.
Or we just, call him, soon-to-be dead guy.
Oh,
because he dies.
Stop.
Children of Earth. Just saying.
I know.
All right.
I know. We don't have to talk about that.
Okay, we won't talk about that. But we will when we talk about Children of Earth at some point, because we got to talk about that. Thomas Knight as Luke Smith and Alexander Armstrong as Sarah Jane's computer, Mr. Smith. So lots of people to talk about in this one.
Hello, computer.
Hello, computer. Might as well get into some trivia really quick. John, you got any trivia you want to talk about? Since I know you're kind of Mr. Trivia here on Next Stop Everywhere.
Well, they were doing a lot of holding back on letting the press know about anything on this two-parter. Even the DVD screeners that went out, they blacked out the last 3 or 4 minutes so they wouldn't see the regeneration. So it turned out to be one of the highest-rated episodes in that season. And 8.78 million viewers, and had an appreciation index of 91 for both Stolen Earth and Journey's End, and that's pretty unparalleled. You don't see that a whole lot.
See, this is why I love having John on the podcast, because John does all the homework, so I don't have to. This is great. I can cheat.
So you're cheating.
I'm totally cheating. Yes.
Now you know how I feel, Charles.
So yes, you get Zan gets my because I do all the my big copious notes on Ghostwood, so that all she has to do is kind of sit back and goof on the episodes that we watch. Or
well, I have Reader's Digest. I have Cliff Notes.
You have the
Cliff Notes. I don't have the copious notes that you have. But
yeah, exactly.
I have notes, and you think to look things up that I don't think to look up. Which is
this is true.
Cool.
This is true. We kind of cover each other because there's certain things that I don't put down in my notes that Zan will. So we complement each other pretty well, I think.
I think so too. Yeah, it works out. It's like when you at college, when you went to that place where you bought the notes, you had to still go to class.
Exactly.
Hey, spoiler, I take tons of notes and do lots of homework. I'm taking a vacation today, guys. I'm just here to ride the wave.
You're just riding the subwave. See what I did there?
Yeah. Very nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm with you on that because this is your show and I'm just here to, sound pretty.
Well, mission accomplished. How's that?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Speaking of pretty, let's talk to GJ Nick. Nick,
pretty. I don't know about pretty, but go ahead.
See, I say this because for those out there in podcast land who don't know, Nick never does the camera thing. So
no, I do not.
So he's Mr. Incognito. So
I'm a face for radio. I'm a face for radio, Charles. What can I say?
I've decided he looks just like Nardole. He's my second favorite companion, so I am good with that.
Much appreciated.
All right. So, John, any other trivia before we get started? I've got a couple things if you don't.
Yeah, the other thing I really had was there were bookies that were trying to that were putting names out for when they did actually see that there was going to be a regeneration, or at least we thought there was going to be. Robert Carlyle was the top choice.
Right.
And when I saw that,
I totally see that.
Yeah, I could. I've been a fan of Robert Carlyle since Trainspotting.
I now want to see that.
Exactly.
He would have been bloody amazing.
Oh, I've wanted to see him as the Doctor for years.
Oh, and then some.
Yeah, if you ever watch Once Upon a Time, you know that he would probably make a good Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And some of the lesser names, I don't want to say lesser names, but the runners-up in those in the bookies squares were James McAvoy, Jason Statham, Alan Davies, and James Nesbitt.
Jason Statham.
I know.
I don't know about that one.
Can't see that one, but
I kind of think that's a little bit of a shady rumor. I'm just gonna guess. You mean you want the transporter as the Doctor? Seriously?
James McAvoy could do it, man.
14th Doctor James
split.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's got the range, definitely. Yeah, he does. Now, I do have a little bit of trivia that John didn't mention. For those people who may or may not be wondering about, those planets that kind of get referenced in this story, the missing planets. Obviously, they're kind of shout-outs to previous episodes, so I thought I'd run down really quickly which episodes are those. No, it's just going to be real quick. Don't worry. Everybody's like looking at their watch going, oh, here he goes. Califax Minor was named, of course, from Califax from the Pirate Planet, classic Tom Baker story. Woman Wept was referenced in Boomtown, from the Christopher Eccleston era. Clom, of course, was referenced in Love and Monsters, my least favorite Doctor Who episode ever.
Who'd want Clom?
Clom. Pyrovilia, that should be a no-brainer if you watch The Fires in Pompeii. Adipose 3, of course, named for the Adipose in Partners in Crime, which, of course, reintroduced Donna Noble and made her a companion officially. The Lost Moon of Poosh got a shout-out in Midnight. And the other planets, Jahu and Shalakatop, weren't actually referenced in any other previous Doctor Who story, so forget them. They suck. And there was this other planet named Earth. Maybe you've heard of it. I don't know, but, you know.
Charles, did they name all 26 planets?
They did not.
Okay, that's what I was curious.
Because otherwise we'd be here forever with me droning on. We don't need that. All right. All right. And a other bit of trivia. Scientist and author Richard Dawkins makes an appearance in this episode. He has a cameo as himself. Dawkins was married to Lalla Ward, the second Romana from the classic era of Doctor Who.
Jeez, who wasn't?
So I'm guessing that was after Tom Baker, because of course Lalla Ward was married to Tom Baker at one point too.
Was he the one saying that the planets weren't brought to them; they were brought to the planets because the stars are different?
Yep, that was him.
That was him.
Excellent.
Yep. So that's that guy. For those, all right. So let's get into the actual story now. Topic number 1 as we go through our outline: the Dr. Donna. Start right off with a strong one right off the bat. The 10th Doctor and Donna Noble. And obviously, this is essentially the final Donna Noble story. Although she does kind of make a cameo appearance in The End of Time. And it's a really really bad tearjerker. I mean, it just breaks your heart, this ending. And it's one of the reasons I really like this story. Because it's so tragic, and you feel like your heart just goes out to Donna. So I'm going to start with Jesse first, and we'll kind of go around the room a little bit. Everybody can get their thoughts on this. But Jesse, what are your thoughts about the 10th Doctor and Donna?
So to give a little background, as listeners know, I mainlined everything up to, I kind of binged watch, and I did not start watching every week until Matt Smith became the Doctor. So I kind of went through this. I've been on the record saying that Donna is one of my least favorite companions. But as we rewatch these episodes, I've grown to like her a lot more. I find her less shrill, and I find her humor and her charm a lot more. Don't give me a boo.
No. It was raising up from the boo.
That's deciding whether you live or die.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not like I'm talking bad about K9. God knows I've learned that lesson.
You damn right you better.
Talk bad about K9, Charles. Just cut his feed.
That's right.
Exactly.
You're gone. You're out of here. You're out of the podcast if you trash K9.
I recently there was someone had done an article about the saddest companions exits, and this one was ranked to number 1. And as I'm watching this, I felt every emotion of seeing this happen to Donna, because she didn't want to romance the Doctor. She embraced living in the TARDIS, having the adventures. And, she literally, as she says, I plan to do this forever. I always love seeing David Tennant. He's my favorite Doctor. I love seeing the interactions. And yes, I'll let everyone else talk now, but the end of Donna is so touching and so sad that it is just a perfect end to to this story.
Yeah, real quick to follow up, Jesse. So, did this story, after now that we've talked a few Donna Noble stories, did her losing her memories of the Doctor, did that really affect you more than you think it would have had we not talked about those stories?
Oh, absolutely. The first time I watched this, it was kind of like, okay, what's next? Okay, he's losing another companion.
Right.
I'd already seen Rose go away, and we'd seen Martha, and then now that Donna. So there wasn't an emotional attachment because, as I said, I wasn't a big fan of Donna. But now that we've gone back, and all these years of watching classic Who and the modern Who, the tragic end of she doesn't die, she continues to have her life, but to lose the memories of all this uniqueness is such a tragedy, and it's such a, I understand why it has to do, but it feels like a punishment that she's being sentenced to a life of ordinary, and she's so much more than the ditzy Donna we see at the end. She was more than that, and now then she's back to that persona, and that makes it, that's another tragedy that's very
it makes
sad.
it all the more tragic. Yep.
Yes.
All right. Christine, I'm sure you've got one or two thoughts about Donna Noble and the 10th Doctor.
Oh, yes. I've been on record that Donna is my favorite companion. And I started with Modern Who, and I've only seen a few random episodes of Classic Who. But I watched the first companion fall for the Doctor. I watched the second companion fall for the Doctor, and I think way too fast and get treated poorly as the rebound girl. And I didn't like it. And then Donna comes in.
Big thumbs up from Zan on that one.
Yeah. Donna comes in, and she's not like them. She's it's like a breath of fresh air. She didn't fall for the Doctor, but she's the first one who felt to me like an equal to the Doctor. She didn't look up to him. She may have not understood everything going on in their travels, but she looked to him for information, but she would also keep him in check. She knew what was right and wrong, and she would say it. She was never afraid to speak her mind, and that, I think, is my favorite part about her, is she's not afraid to speak her mind. It's something I really wish I could do a lot. And yeah, she could be a little in your face, but sometimes you gotta be. And
I just jump in. I think that's one of the reasons why I've grown to like her so much more, is because of that personality and sticking up the way she has.
Absolutely. And I always who doesn't see themselves as a companion, to go traveling with the Doctor? And I think the worst thing that could happen to any of us is to have done it and have it all taken away and not remember that it ever happened. Because basically, you're right back where you started. It's our lives. It's our current lives. And it kind of sucks that we don't get to travel with the Doctor. And you can't, to have it happen where you did travel with the Doctor and not remember. I mean, we are our memories. A piece of her is gone. A huge piece of her was ripped away. I would rather get killed and have lived that life. I would rather end up like Amy and Rory, where they're out of their own time and can never see the Doctor again. Not that I understand that, but I would rather end up in any of the other scenarios. In an alternate universe, I would pick any of those over having never done it at all.
Yeah, well, as like Wolf said, he said, she was better with you. And and then Sylvia's kind of taken aback by that, going, you can't say that, and she's like, but she was. He's right, she was.
And Christine, one of my favorite sayings is from Dr. Seuss, right? Don't be sad it's over. Be glad it happened.
Yes.
And she doesn't get that. She doesn't
Exactly.
She doesn't. And I agree. That is brilliant on Russell T Davies' writing, and makes the episode, even though I know what's happening, was really powerful.
Yeah. Zan, what about you? What did you think about the Doctor and Don in this one?
Well, I'd like to start by saying that my opinion on this is binary. And
Nice.
I agree with you guys a lot.
I saw what you did there, and I love it.
Thank you. Charles, as you know, and the rest of you may not know, but my favorite companion has always been Ace.
Yes.
So the whole idea of this companion that is more of an equal to the Doctor, and Christine, like you said, who's not just in love with the Doctor. I got kind of sick of that myself as well. I liked that, and I always did like Catherine Tate as a comedian. So when I heard that she was going to be the companion, I'm like, how are they going to do that? Those two gigantic personalities. And I thought it worked out really, really well. I thought they really did it very well. And I grew to meet Donna. You're not supposed to like her. She's horrible. She's not a horrible person. She's just extremely vapid and a bit vain,
Right.
and very superficial. And she grows so much to be with the Doctor. So that is extremely heartbreaking at the end. And to have her grandfather, of all people, saying she's better this other way than what she was her whole life is heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. It's 100% true, but it's heartbreaking. But at the same time, part of me thinks about characters after the story ends for them. What do they do? And with new Doctor Who, we've been able to find out a little bit what happens. You know, we know what happened to Sarah Jane, and we know we've learned a little bit more of that than we ever did with Classic Who. And I think it might be hard to carry on that mundane sort of a life after having traveled to any point at any time, anywhere you can possibly think of. And so having her memory erased, it's heartbreaking, but there's this little tiny smidge of, I don't know, just it's the humane thing almost. There's this little tiny bit of it being the humane thing to do. And I also think that when we lose our memories, and this is I've seen, and we've seen this in every science fiction show, that when someone has lost their memories, they're not really gone. You know, it's an eternal sunshine of the spotless mind thing. You lose your memory, but you go back to the place where you're supposed to be, regardless of what your memories are. So I like to think that the Doctor, even though she has lost her memory of being with the Doctor, that Donna is going to sort of pick up from that more aware space that she was in after having been with the Doctor, that there's more to life than being a temp in Chiswick and finding a husband and all of those things that we saw when we first saw her. That I like to think that there's something in her core that has changed that will carry on with that, even if she doesn't have the memories of the Doctor, which is heartbreaking. But, you know, Rose is heartbreaking like twice. You know? Yeah. Like, hi, I love you. I have to be in another dimension. Oh, good to see you again. I have to go back to this other dimension again.
Right.
So she doesn't have that sort of thing. And she doesn't have that unrequited love thing that I used to travel with this guy, and I don't even know what he looks like now. I couldn't call him if I wanted to. That she doesn't have that wistfulness anymore, and I think there's something humane about that.
Now, Zan, you and I, we've obviously we come from the Classic Who background, so
yes.
So yeah, it's Donna.
That we're old, Charles.
Just experienced. Experienced. How's that?
I think technically I'm the oldest guy in the TARDIS right now. So
okay,
yeah,
okay,
quite possibly.
Yeah. But yeah, the because of, you know, we come from that classic era background. Donna, I'm speaking for obviously for me, but she was such a breath of fresh air after Rose and after Martha, because you had Rose, who is just so hung up on the Doctor, both of them, both the 9th and the 10th Doctor. Particularly the 10th, obviously. And, and then you had, the 10th Doctor was showing feelings for her, and, of course, has to say, I love you, but only whispers it into her ear, as they're saying goodbye. And Martha, tragically, it was an unrequited love, but she's still mooning over the Doctor. And,
right.
And then when Donna came in, go ahead.
She harkens back to the age of Liz,
right?
Who
Liz
just not going to
Liz
take
Shaw,
the doctor's crap.
Yeah, Liz Shaw from the Third Doctor area. Yeah,
she's not going to take his crap, and I think that was a great reminder that there can be two big personalities inside the TARDIS.
Yep.
And one of the things I really appreciate that you brought up, Zan, is that there was a character arc with Donna. We don't often get some character development and change, but I think you could make the argument one of the biggest was with Donna, because she really did mature and grow.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a really good point. And I think that's one of the reasons why, as I watch other episodes, I'm drawn more to her.
Yep.
I told people that if they want to like Donna, they need to watch her Ood episode.
Yes, that's a good one.
Planet of the Ood, I really think that she comes into her own and shows what she's learned and shows how much she knows in that particular episode.
I mean, if you look at how much she grew since Voyage of the Damned, when she shows up in the end of the TARDIS, at the end with the TARDIS, and then the
what the hell is this place?
Exactly, just that obnoxious, just coming in there and just they're essentially there to cause conflict, and she becomes so much more under Russell T Davies, and it's such a credit to his writing that he really fleshes out her character and makes her a character of substance, of depth, and that's why it's so tragic when all of that is lost at the end of Journey's End.
It's hard. It's just heartbreaking.
It is.
It's because you see how it's affecting not just her, and you see her coming out. Why am I asleep on my bed with my clothes like a kid? She's full on original Donna, and then you see her grandfather crying, and I'm a sucker for an old man crying. If an old man starts to cry, just forget it. I'm crying.
Well, Wilf became a meme, so
And Wilf does have those sad eyes. I mean,
he sure does.
That actor is able to play it very strong.
All right.
But the thing is, if there's anybody that can bring out the good in her that the Doctor brought out, it's him.
This is true.
And even the Doctor says, tell her that once in a while, that she needs somebody else in her life besides me to tell her she's worth a damn.
Yeah.
And so, I have hopes for Donna, even though it's really bleak and really tragic. I'm very hopeful for her.
All right, let's get John and Nick in on this one. John, what any thoughts about Donna Noble in this story?
Well, I've loved Donna since day one. Out of all the families that Russell T Davies brought to us, I think her family was the most recognizable and believable. And just all the adventures that she went on all of a sudden at the very end, it's like, okay, I have to take this away from you now. Sarah Jane even said to the Doctor in school reunion, we go on all these adventures with you, and then you just leave us. How are we supposed to live our lives after that?
Exactly.
And it's just for her to just be blown out like a candle. It was so sad.
Well, I mean, it's this. They're brought to this whole new experience of seeing the wonders of the universe, and then to have that ripped away. And it's something that Jesse and I have talked about, that essentially, the companions need to form a support group. At least the ones that are, kind of in the same time era. You think they reach out to each other and just especially the ones that some of them had to be probably struggling with that a little bit.
I would so watch that show, Charles.
I would love to write that show.
I don't know if you guys remember the sitcom Dear John, that was a group of people that knew each other from being in a support group for divorced people. Mm-hmm. That would be great. Support group for old companions, and then their adventures therein.
It writes itself, doesn't it?
I feel slightly different about this whole situation. I mean, I look at it like any great thing that you were a part of that had to come to an end. Even if it was just being in a play at a community theater, eventually it's over, and you think back on it as sad, but it enriches your life. You do get over it, and it becomes a part of you. I mean, look what Sarah Jane did with her life afterwards. She wouldn't have been that way if it weren't for her time with the Doctor. And I think having the possibility to become that better person through your experience with the Doctor is much better than having, a year of your life just wiped away and having it never exist. I'd rather the sadness, if you could fall in love with someone, but they're going to die in a year, would you wish to have never met them? I think most people would say that they would rather have loved and lost than not loved at all.
Yep. All right. Nick, how about you? Any thoughts on the 10th Doctor or Donna?
Well, first off, here's the thing. At first, I was not a huge fan of Catherine Tate as Donna Noble because she did get on my nerves a little bit. But as the series progressed, I appreciated her for being so sort of abrasive and out there. And
so you're kind of in the Jesse camp.
To a certain extent, yes. And also, for those canine haters out there, this is what I've got to say.
Incoming message, Master.
That's what I've got on my phone.
Yes.
That is awesome.
I'm gonna give points to Nick on that one. I'm gonna mark that one up for.
That's what I've got on my phone for my text messages.
For those of you keeping score, I'm giving points to Nick.
Okay.
Cheers. Appreciate that.
Wait, there's points?
There's
when
points.
did this happen?
There's secret points.
But my thing was, I love the arc that Donna went through and such. I have to say, my one big problem with New Who has always been the fact is, why do the companions have to fall in love with the Doctor? Because having been a huge fan of Classic Who, where it never happened that you had a platonic relationship between the companions and the Doctor, and it was never anything, to where there was mad love. I understand the fact of...
They were friends.
Exactly. And to where it became, modern times, so obviously it's a modern series, we have to make people fall in love. And that kind of grinded my gears a little bit, because I thought to myself, it's one of the few series where you don't have a love interest. And that's what I appreciated so much about Doctor Who at the time. And so it kind of got on my nerves about the fact of the companions falling in love with the Doctor. And that was a little bit of a, should we say, a point of irritation for myself. But aside from that, I very much appreciated the arc that Donna goes through and the story. I mean, I myself found myself crying at the end of this story, of the fact that she loses her memory and she loses her time with the Doctor. And that was, I think, where one really appreciates Catherine Tate's performance throughout this story and the journey that she has undergone. And so I definitely very much appreciate her as a companion. My only, shall we say, gripe with this with the New Who situation was the fact of, why do the companions have to fall in love with the Doctor? That was my only thing.
Yep, and it's a lot. I think it's a common thing that a lot of us classic fans, because we know we saw that classic dynamic, and then to see Rose and Martha pining after the Doctor, you're just like, well, why do we have to have this?
Exactly.
Is it just to appease shippers? Is that it, or?
I mean, David Tennant's a very attractive man, but come on.
Well, and I think also when we get
Captain Jack around compared to Tennant.
Yeah,
look.
When we get to that the category to talk about with the clone, I think that's something I want to get y'all's opinion on, because it's very clear that the Doctor has feelings for Rose as well.
All right, we'll save that.
Okay, save that.
Yeah, we'll save that, because obviously
we're going to tease.
It's a tease. So, all right. So, with that in mind, let's move on to our next topic. Unless anybody's got any really urging, important final thoughts about 10th Doctor and Donna. All right, let's move on to topic number 2, Team Torchwood. So, Captain Jack, Gwen, and Yento.
Woohoo!
All right. I'm making Christine very, very happy.
You are making Christine very happy.
This big old smile from Christine.
I feel like I should have little pom poms,
She was writing me pretty hard about that, so I can understand why. So
well she should, Charles.
And I'm trying to accommodate her. So all right, dead guy. Just saying. All right. All right. So let's talk about Torchwood here. Christine, let's talk about. Why don't we go to you first this time? Let's kind of change this.
Joy.
Yeah. So you're on the spot, and Any thoughts about Captain Jack or Gwen or Yanto you want to express in this story?
I was kind of upset we didn't get more of Gwen and Yanto, but you have to make cuts where you can't, where you have to, because there's such a large cast in these 2 episodes. But I felt the little they had, they did well in. Captain Jack, and I'm going to have this problem with, like, all of the little groups. When they find out that what's happened is Daleks, I think the ones who know what Daleks are, I think they overreact. Considering their own personal experience, they just instantly, they give up. It's like, you're all going to die. I'm so sorry.
It's like, you beat them before.
It's like, I mean, I think the only one who has a little bit of an understanding here is Jack, because they did kill him the first time. Right. That was his first death and the whole reason for his situation now. But
yeah, you kind of figured that.
It's just like so over the top. I'm like, they like, I watched the modern series was my first experience with Daleks, and by this point I was like, but you guys have beaten Daleks like a few times now. I maybe way back during the time where I could totally understand this reaction, but come on, guys, they're not as bad as you're making it out to be. So I feel like they've played the Daleks one too many times, because just, even to get that reaction from Jack was a bit much. But to get to Team Torchwood and all of this, it was nice to see them and their interaction with Martha, because she had been on Torchwood once before. Right. And one of the things I love with crossovers is, I like referential humor and just references to things of the past, keeping things from being so episodic, where it's like just a reset button each time. Even though the people who are watching this episode may not be watching Torchwood, they still mention Owen and Tosh in this, and keeping their memory alive. Even that time lock shield or whatever, that was Tosh's thing, which I don't think we ever actually saw her working on that.
No. It's just something, she did in her spare time off camera. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it was great to see the set. It's clearly they didn't have to build a separate set for working on this production. It's all one big family. All of the sets were there. It was nice to see Team Torchwood, even if it didn't get all sexy like it normally does in Torchwood.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, Torchwood, they're on Doctor Who now. And that's kind of one of the things that makes this story, I think, so special, is that because they kind of tended to compartmentalize the shows. You had Sarah Jane Adventures for the younger viewers, you had Doctor Who for the entire family, and Torchwood for the older kids and the adults. And
Doctor Who After Dark.
Doctor Who After Dark, exactly. Yes. And so here, though, we finally get to see all 3 shows in the same forum here on Doctor Who, and so I guess maybe the Doctor Who audience kind of use it as a gateway to kind of get into Torchwood, or get into the Sarah Jane Adventures. And
gateway drug,
exactly. Just give them that little first free taste. It's all good, and it shows that kind of shared universe, and I think I really dig that about this story, because it's really the only real time that all 3 shows obviously get incorporated into the same story so far, anyway. So I thought it was pretty cool.
And it is very cool, Charles, and seeing them all interact together is pretty special.
Yeah, I think so.
So well said.
Zan, how about you? Any thoughts about Captain Jack Harkness, or that you can put
related to this episode
that you're willing to put on on recorded air?
My.
I should preface that, shouldn't I?
Oh, I am Donna to his Captain Jack Harkness. This is a purely platonic love that I have for Captain Jack.
You just want the hug. You just want the hug, right?
And I got one. Boo, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Are the
Yeah,
pictures?
yeah. When I met him at a convention, he met me and he said, "That's your name? Did your mom take a lot of Xanax?" And it was very funny. And he gave me a big hug and I got an autograph. It was lovely. But yeah, he's a lovely gentleman. Anyway, I loved Torchwood. I loved how it became that Doctor Who After Dark without making Doctor Who into a sex fiend. You know, and I love that about Doctor Who is that the writers know, no, we have to make a new character for that. We can add that to Doctor Who. You know, we can have a character who's pansexual, but it's not going to be the Doctor. The Doctor's like does not have girlfriends until he has a wife in the future that we never actually see him married to. Things like that. And I'm with you, Christine, with the referential humor and the dark. You know, did you have a grandma that worked at a funeral parlor?
Oh yeah. Are you from an old Welsh family?
Right.
The idea that yes, we know this actress is in this show before, and we're going to really remind you that we know, but we're going to make it work. I liked that I really did like that bit, and I like those characters, and like you said, they've all referenced each other. Now, Captain Jack has been in Doctor Who, but the rest of the characters kind of have only ever sort of referenced each other. Like, what is it, Children of Earth, where Gwen says, where is that doctor of his when we really need him?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but it is a lot of people. It's hard to get the time you want with everybody that you want. But it's nice to see that these are groups that do their own tangential thing with the Doctor, but they can work together. You don't have that sort of adversarial thing of, I'm the Doctor's favorite or something like that. Kind of what you had in the I can't think of the title. The episode where we introduce Sarah Jane again, where we come back.
Oh, school reunion.
The school reunion, yes, it's as Mickey says, "Oh, mate, the Mrs. and the X. I don't envy you right now."
That is one of the best lines ever in Doctor Who, in my opinion.
That is fantastic, and so I think
every guy can relate to that line. It's every guy's worst nightmare.
I think that the fact that they can all work together and get along, and yes, Mickey's always the whipping boy, and yes,
he's the tin dog.
He's the tin dog. There's always the running joke of everything, but there's not like a power struggle, because I think everybody kind of understands that we are here because the Doctor's here. I mean, everybody knows there's an unspoken rule that it's the Doctor who is the head honcho.
Exactly. And it's his show. Yeah,
it's his thing, and they
his
know they're all
TARDIS.
spin-offs. Right. And as much as Captain Jack, is, with his watch, he kind of could be the Doctor, but that's not what he does. He goes to different galaxies to get laid, not to have a difference. He does his own thing.
He's the Doctor of Torchwood.
He's the Doctor of Torchwood. Sarah Jane is the Doctor of Sarah Jane.
Exactly.
But the Doctor is the Doctor, and I like that. But yeah, I did like the referential humor, especially with Gwen. I thought that was fantastic. And like you said, it's always nice to see them. I loved Torchwood. It was my favorite of the spin-offs. As much as I love Sarah Jane, it was my favorite of the spin-offs for sure.
Yep, I get that. A lot of people. I think a lot of people
like Class.
I don't think anybody liked Class. That's why we'd only got one season of Class.
Okay. I thought it was okay.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, John, I hear you in the background.
Like Charles said, kind of the classic era.
John, so I hear you in the background. So any thoughts on Torchwood? Or the Torchwood characters?
Well, being an episode of this scale that you need to be able to keep the story going, I think they did a great job of putting in a little bit of the references that everybody knew, and they talked about the Rift, they talked about the other members, and they just kept it going. Never once did you say, okay, I'm done with Torture, let's go on to the next one. They just did a really nice job with the writing on that. And I've always been, been Team Torchwood since day one, so it was nice to see everyone together again.
Yeah, I think it enhanced the story but it didn't feel like you, at least in this story, it didn't feel like you had to watch Torchwood to kind of understand these characters or what they were about. Because they had kind of been referenced so often in the show. Like, you kind of had seen Torchwood a little bit under, I forget the character's name, Yvonne Hartman, and so you kind of had a little bit of an idea of Torchwood, and you knew Captain Jack, so you really didn't need to know much more than that. But if you were a Torchwood fan, it's essentially like extra credit watching Doctor Who with these characters, and that's awesome. Nick, how about you?
Okay, well, when it comes actually to roping in the Torchwood team, I thought it was brilliant how they actually went about it. And, for all the hot-blooded women who, of course, were all out for John Barrowman's blood.
And more than a few men, I'm sure.
I have a message for Eve Miles. Eve, call me, babe. We were supposed to have that dating card. Where were you? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So yes, I definitely have the hots for Eve Miles and then some. But aside from that, it was brilliant how it was all, like I said, roped in and how everybody interacted and such. And I actually watched Torchwood myself because when I first saw The Stolen Earth, I actually went back and rewatched the entire Torchwood series. And got to know the characters more, and it was very enriching. But I feel that even for those who have never watched Torchwood, you can still appreciate the characters for what they are in Doctor Who if you've only watched Doctor Who. And I just love the part they played. However, I was not a huge fan of the defeatist, should we say, trait that went on throughout this episode, as in, like Christine said before, the Daleks have arrived, okay, we're just going to lay down our arms and roll over. And that I thought was kind of surprising.
They're doing the shrug emoji. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Seeing as the various villains and threats that these people have faced, it's kind of throws you for a loop that the Daleks show up and everybody kind of rolls over, and it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. It's the end of the world, and that's it. And so it was a little bit surprising. And I feel in this case it was a little bit of poor writing in that situation, because rather than a call to arms and react to this situation, saying, we have to defend our planet and we have to defend the universe and what have you, it was kind of what are we going to do? There's nothing we can do at this point. The Daleks are going to reign supreme, and nobody does anything at first. There's that one defeatist moment, which I was not a fan of. But other than that, I love Torchwood. I love the Torchwood team, and of course, a huge fan of Eve Miles. What can I say?
Yeah. Well, Nick, your "It's Raining Gwen" fantasy aside, I kind of agree with you, but I think we can kind of explain maybe Torchwood's defeatist attitude toward the Daleks a little bit, because if you remember, this is kind of like them. At this point they were coming off series 2 of Torchwood, where they had just lost Owen, they had just lost Tosh, and so maybe they're not feeling as self-confident as they normally would. Maybe.
True. But one thing
I'm just saying you could kind of explain it if you really deep dove into it a little bit.
We lost the dead guy who was still living. This is the last thing we need right now.
Yeah, exactly. We got another dead guy coming up. Sorry.
Knock it off.
I do appreciate that, and at the same time, speaking of defeatist moments, what I did appreciate, though, of the defeatist period was seeing Elisabeth Sladen crying when she heard the Daleks' voice. Because as a fan of Genesis of the Daleks, that immediately brought me back to watching Genesis of the Daleks, and that I really appreciate.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I had
because having watched, as you know, Doctor Who from the 1960s all the way up, it was a treat and almost a present to see Elisabeth Sladen crying when she heard the voice of the Daleks, and that meant a lot to me. I was kind of fist bumping the TV.
I thought that.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you on that one, Nick, because out of all of those people, she's the one that has had it the hardest with the Daleks. And again, we're back to that referencing where you're almost rewarded for having watching Doctor Who since the 60s and on. And I'm with you. I love that too.
Yeah. To kind of give everybody kind of a refresher who may not have listened to Nick's episodes here on Next Up. This man went all the way back to An Unearthly Child, the very first Doctor Who story, and marathoned the entire series. So from start to finish, and I know Christine's going like woohoo, woohoo, but I give Matt props for that. As a hardcore Whovian, I gotta respect that dedication that you went back that far and did the whole series in a row.
I seriously hope you ate 100 tacos doing that.
Sadly, tacos are hard to come by in this country, but
that's true.
909 slices of individually wrapped American cheese.
Yeah, exactly. Right. No, but a lot of pizza and a lot of pasta was consumed during the course of that marathon.
There you go.
Awesome.
Yeah. Remember, he's from Italy, so yeah, I'm sure pasta was involved.
He can get German probably fairly easily though, so good for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, and Jesse, I'm sure you've been dying to chime in on this a little bit. So, as before we get too far into the woods again, any thoughts on Torchwood?
Yeah, I first off love everyone else's comments, and that Torchwood was my gateway drug. I watched Torchwood before I watched Doctor Who, so it was good to see the guys again and gals. Right there with Eve, Miles, and so it was fun to see them. I agree with you guys, and the shout out of "Hey, is there a chance?" was kind of a nice little nod for fans, and I agree with what has been said. They kind of got thrown to the side, and Captain Jack got most of the screen time. But you can only fit so many people into so many scenes. But it was great to see them, and I'm glad they were included, and they played their part, and I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, and you try to make time for everybody, but it doesn't, always work out like you want it to. So, as I'm finding out on today's podcast, oddly enough. So
you're doing fine, Charles.
I'm trying my best. All right. Yeah. Any other thoughts from anybody on Torchwood before we move on? All right. Topic number 3: Team Sarah Jane. So we had Team Torchwood, now Team Sarah Jane. Zan, how about we go with you first now? You expressed some great thoughts about Sarah Jane in Genesis of the Daleks. So you got any thoughts on Sarah Jane you want to share?
I love Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane was my Donna. Sarah Jane was to me what Donna was to Jesse. That when I remember when I first watched Doctor Who, here she was she was the one that needed to be rescued. She was Doctor, just completely.
By the way,
to high strung about everything, needed to be rescued, all that stuff, and I was like, whatever, Sarah Jane.
Excuse me, San. If Charles can give points, I'm going to give points for the best Sarah Jane impersonation. So if we're keeping score, she gets points. Okay.
Yeah, I get points.
Yep.
So I learned to like her a little bit more as she went on, and like with any companion, you were sad to see her leave. But then when she came back with her own show, she just came back full force and was like, okay, this is what this character could have been if she had been written by people who knew how to write for women.
Exactly.
Which is honestly what was wrong with her.
Exactly.
Sometimes people do not know how to write for anything but what they are, and that's exactly what happened with Sarah Jane.
Yep.
And
We're looking at you,
so they
Canine and Company.
Canine and Company, she was like the Wesley Crusher, a great character that nobody knew how to write.
Right. She's essentially the Lois Lane of Doctor Who. How do you not write for that?
Seriously. So anyway, that being said, I loved Sarah Jane when she finally came back with being a very strong character, being a very strong personality. And the fact that she just kept K9 is like the greatest thing ever.
I'm gonna keep this.
I'm gonna take this with me. All right.
I'm gonna keep this dog with the laser nose. Yes.
You can take anything from the ship. Okay. Just walk off with K9.
Walking down the street with my tin dog.
Yeah. That is awesome, and I feel like her having the Mr. Smith computer,
like she's rocking a boombox. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, just walking along the street with K9. Like, here we go. But yeah, I feel like with her having the Mr. Smith computer, first of all, she creates the Mr. Smith computer, which is pretty amazing.
Right? How did she get that thing? We don't know.
I think they mentioned
I don't know.
Oh, did they?
I think they mentioned it in the first episode of Sarah Jane Adventures. Something about being a foreign or an alien intelligence or something like that.
Okay. It's been a while since I watched that pilot, so I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
she's
rewatch
to work for her basically, and I love that about her. And the fact that she names it Mr. Smith, I think is adorable. I think it's not yet the same trope of her having been in love with the Doctor, even though I think she had a bit of a
Crush.
Florence Nightingale thing for the Doctor more than anything else. But I don't think she was Rose or Martha when it comes to that. But it's just a nice little thing that is a reminder for her that I know how to do these things and I know what to look for in the world because of this guy, because of my time with him. And I thought that was great. Luke, not one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
And
he's just, I think it's maybe just because the child actor wasn't that great of an actor.
I like that he was rescued. Well, it's a very, very
Tommy
personal reason why Luke, I have very, very personal reasons why Luke is a problem for me, which I will not go into.
Okay.
Because we don't have the time.
Okay. No, we don't.
It's not a secret. We don't have the time.
We don't have the time.
But I now want a spin-off episode of where you, Charles, and I go into this. Just
there are still plenty of Sarah Jane Adventures we haven't talked about on Next Stop Everywhere.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, I love the fact that she rescued him from those evil bubble shock people.
Yeah.
I'm glad that he is with her.
Points for
he's
evil
not one of my
bubble shock
favorite
people.
And I'm fine with watching him grow, but he's not one of my favorites. So,
Points for remembering the name. I was going with evil soda people.
Yeah.
Bubble shock. Yep.
Yep. Definitely.
So yeah, he's but when he's on screen, I have to say I'm just sort of like, okay, what's next?
Yeah. Yeah, which is probably why they wrote him out toward the end of the show, sending him off to college.
And that he was so brilliant. He was going to go to college in like a month after being with Sarah Jane anyway. So
yeah, but he could probably do that over the Mr. Smith or something. Like by computer.
Yeah. He could be homeschooled by Mr. Smith and have a PhD in about 7 hours.
Exactly.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, no big deal. All right. So let's go with John now. John, any thoughts about Sarah Jane, Team Sarah Jane?
I did like the fact that in this episode they kind of embraced her being a mother. Mm-hmm. When the Sarah Jane Adventures were on, I mean, Luke's her adopted son, but it really kind of came through a little bit more in this one, especially when here's 200 Dalek ships that have just entered the atmosphere. And that's when you really see that she's worried, and she's worried for her, and she was worried for her son, and it just kept gave it a little bit more reality.
And probably for Clyde and Ronnie and everybody else, mm-hmm. just and that was the great thing about Sarah Jane. She said she's a character with a big heart, and I think that's one of her strengths. Really, is that she's so caring, and you're probably right, John. I think that's why she was. She's trying to look out for everybody, I think. Do you now? Let's see what else. We get the return of K9, and so John, what did you think about K9 making a little cameo appearance?
I'm Team Canine with you guys as well. I mean,
There you go.
Who doesn't love Canine? And
Everybody looks at Jesse with the dagger eyes.
I just love the fact that John Leeson actually he gave the lines through his cell phone. He wasn't even there for the recording. He just
phoned it in. He literally phoned it in.
He phoned it in.
He did. He phoned it in, and yeah, it was, I love that. But I love the little. They didn't do it as much in this episode as they did in the series, but the little this and that between Canine and Mr. Smith. And there's always this little almost like a sibling rivalry.
It's like we talk. It's like a Spock and McCoy kind of relationship.
Right.
That's a perfect comparison.
Yeah, it's
That was pretty good. All right, Nick, any thoughts on Sarah Jane?
Well, for somebody who, of course, has had the chance to see Doctor Who in its entirety, it was obviously a great pleasure to see Elisabeth Sladen again and taken into the, should we say, modern Doctor Who era. I mean, granted, we got to see her before that, and so it's always a pleasure. It's always wonderful to see her on screen. And being a huge K9 fan myself, I own a cat. I don't own a dog, but if I ever were to own a dog, I'd only want K9. No other dogs, just K9. But other than that, I mean, it was wonderful.
He is TARDIS trained.
Exactly, and he's TARDIS trained. So what else do you want? But
wait, I hate to break it to you, but real dogs don't talk, right?
They don't.
Sadly,
They don't.
True, but they can learn.
No, he doesn't want a real dog just to name it Canine. He just wants to have Canine.
Yeah, exactly. He's just like, forget the naming thing. That's cute and all, but I want the real tin dog. That's what I want.
Exactly. Just give me a K9 now, and I'll be happy for the rest of my life. But I love the fact that they had this nod to classic Who with Elisabeth Sladen in it, and of course K9. It put a huge smile on my face, and as I mentioned before, the fact that she was the only one who kind of broke into tears when she heard the Dalek voice, and so I was only too happy to see her, and of course, like I mentioned before, K9, and so it was an excellent addition to this episode for sure.
Yep, I think so as well. All right, Jesse, how about you?
Well, I have a soft spot in my heart, I think, because I had not watched a lot of Sarah Jane Smith episodes till we had lost the actress. So there is a bittersweet feeling when I see her. And so I always think of that. And I liked her. I liked the way she was working on this. I love the way that Captain Jack saluted her, and it just showed her the respect as a classic companion.
She's treated well in this story.
She is treated almost like TARDIS royalty, and I like that. I like that a lot.
Because a lot of fans, they consider her the definitive companion.
Yes, I think when you have votes, and I certainly
not Zan, but
yeah, but I certainly can understand why. And when we've talked classic episodes, it's very clear why people feel that way about her. So it was good to see her. I do think it was interesting, and you guys have talked about that everyone did seem to go, and I'm going to call it a hand wave because you've only got 2 45-minute episodes or whatever they are. They do seem to go to, okay, scorched earth, we're going to take the suicide pill really quick. Like everyone's like really fast versus, hey, maybe we should try to fight first. So I really appreciate you guys all bringing that up because I thought the same thing. Like, hey, wait a minute, that's a little defeatist. Yeah. So yes.
Yeah, everybody was. I guess they just weren't feeling it that day. I guess.
Absolutely. Yes.
Just the Daleks caught them on a bad day. All right.
So, Charles,
Yes.
we've kind of gone through around this, and you haven't shared your feelings about any of the topics. So
I'm too busy trying to corral all you people. So
okay, well, I just want to make sure. I want to make sure you have your chance.
Are you
to
calling
share
us
yourself.
unruly?
no, never perish the thought.
I
How
think
about
he's just calling us verbose.
how about spirited? How's that?
Yes.
S-
And verbose.
well, like I'm one to talk. If just listen to us on Ghostwood. We're pretty much we'll talk anything.
much.
But as for me, I'm a huge Sarah Jane fan from way back. Obviously, like back in the '80s, watching some Tom Baker, got to see a lot of Sarah Jane. And, when she was brought back during Peter Davison's era and the Five Doctors, everybody was geeking out over that. I was right there with them. I thought that was great. So great to see her again. And then when she finally gets brought back, they had the failed Canine and Company attempted spinoff. And then she doesn't, obviously she doesn't get brought back until the modern era with School Reunion. And that was just such a wonderful reintroduction to the character and introducing Sarah Jane to a whole new generation of fans and creating that connection between modern Who and classic Who and showing that, hey, it's all just one big story. It's all connected. And it's not just like one show that became a different show. It's all one show. And Sarah Jane's a big part of that. So, and then, obviously, she proved popular enough. They gave her the spin-off, the Sarah Jane Adventures. She has her own companions with Luke and Clyde and Ronnie, and so she gets to be the Doctor on the Sarah Jane Adventures, and she's the lead character, and it's awesome that she's one of the few companions that have gotten that kind of a spotlight, and probably, especially like Captain Jack got it, but Sarah Jane, obviously has been around much longer, so it was kind of great to finally get Elisabeth Sladen her due, and I was really happy to see that. And then to have her come all the way back to Doctor Who in this story, that it really brings things home, and it brings things full circle, I think.
Absolutely.
So it's just really adorable. How about you? But Jesse, any more thoughts about Sarah Jane before we go to Christine?
We're ready to our next topic, please.
Well, we gotta let Christine a shot. She's got.
I'm sorry. That's right.
This is how he saves time. He cuts people out.
Exactly.
No, this is why.
See, this is why
having a
I'm
written down
moderating this
agenda, That way you can remember who's next.
Boys.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
So I don't have a hatred for Luke. I can understand where it comes from, though. I don't think he's the greatest actor, but I thought he was pretty good in his show. I do have trouble understanding why he stuck around so long with such a high intellect and not gone off to college right away. I do know why he wouldn't be homeschooled for that, because college is an experience, it's not just about the learning. But some referential humor involving Team Sarah Jane is that when Mr. Smith opened up, she said, "I wish you wouldn't do that fanfare every time. I wish you would just get, it would save so much time." I was like, yes, because every episode in the Sarah Jane Adventures, he comes out with that ridiculous fanfare, except for one. Yeah. And I think
Russell T Davies did that also in the Death of the Doctor that we just talked about on Next Stop Everywhere. He made fun of that fanfare because it is so ridiculous.
Yeah, it is, but it works for a little kid show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand this little quarrel going on with K9. Why wouldn't anybody like K9? I think he's cute. Unlike some dogs. And Sarah Jane brings a totally different perspective to this whole situation than any of the other companions, as you might say. She knew him way back when, and she's been able to handle situations like this on her own for so long since then. she doesn't look to him for help. And what I always thought was interesting about Sarah Jane, and we don't get a lot of this in the show, but they mention it here and there. She seems to have a lot of alien friends, like a lot of aliens come to her and give her things, which was extremely useful.
She gets hooked up, doesn't she?
Yeah, she gets the hookup. She's got lots of toys. I mean, she has her own Sonic lipstick.
She gets all the goodie bags.
Yeah, and then there's that warp star. I'm like, wow, somebody gave you that? Like, oh, you're just a journalist and a mother, and here, have a little nuclear explosion, all for you.
As you do.
It's great. Yeah,
and you can wear it around your neck. Like,
yes,
it's a great accessory.
And she was the only one I felt I could give a little bit of a pass to the freak out when it was, when she found out it was the Daleks, even though she clearly survived them before. But
have any of these other people been enslaved by the Daleks? No, just Sarah Jane.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? They did not convey that in this because I haven't seen those episodes. I had to when they made the mention that Davros knew Sarah Jane by her face, which she's aged quite a bit since then. I had to look it up and found the genesis of the Daleks, but I didn't get really into it and read through it. As far as I know, I can only watch those episodes through BritBox, which requires a subscription, and I poor. So if anybody wants to gift me a subscription to BritBox, shameless plug. She, being a mother, I can understand the perspective of being terrified that her response was, "You're so young." And, she kept saying that he's 14 years old. I'm like, isn't he really 2 at this point?
Yeah.
She just killed it with that line, though, where she just hears the Daleks and just looks at him like, you're so young. That's her way of saying, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I thought it was well done.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of bugs me about Sarah Jane, the way she's written in this story, is that scene where it's kind of like the cliffhanger at the end of the Stolen Earth, where she's in her car and she almost kind of runs over a couple Daleks and she apologizes to them. She goes, "I'm sorry," like she bashed into the end of their car, and I'm thinking, wouldn't Sarah Jane just try to run over those Daleks?
I was going to say, classic Sarah would have just ran right through them.
Exactly, just barrel through, Smokey the Bandit or something.
Maybe she didn't want to appear like she was being antagonistic and then draw their attention. Right. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
So you think it was all an act?
If you stepped on your bully's foot, you'd be like, sorry.
Yeah, that's how I saw it.
Yeah, I just think I see Sarah Jane as being more defiant than that. But that's me personally. Unless it was an act. That's my only gripe, and it's a pretty minor one. But otherwise, it's just great to see her. All right, topic number 4. Let's move on. The Subwave Network, and this is I want to cover in this topic. I want to cover Harriet Jones, MP, Flydale North,
former Prime Minister.
Former Prime Minister, yes. Got to talk about Wilfred Motts, one of my favorite characters in the Russell T Davies era. Sylvia Noble, we could talk about Jackie, we could talk about Francine if you want, but I don't think anybody's going to want to. But maybe. Mm-hmm. So, John, how about you? Any of the kind of supporting characters to the companions you want to talk about?
I loved Wilf in this episode. The fact that he's got a paintball gun, yes. He's going after the Daleks, and he justifies it to Sylvia. He's like, they've only got one eye. Yeah. And it was the classic thing of
he's practical about it,
right. And when he does hit him in the eye, it's the whole classic Who thing where my vision is impaired, I cannot see, and then it just looks at him and says, my vision is not impaired, and just the look on Will's face is like, oh, damn.
Dalek takes out the plunger, drops the plunger, moves.
Pretty much. Yeah, I loved him in this episode.
He was great. Yeah, Bernard Crimmins is fantastic. I love him as Wilf, and I get a kick out of him. get the return of they kill off Harriet Jones in this one. John, were you kind of surprised that they killed off Harriet Jones in this story the first time you watched it?
I was, but I was never a huge fan of Harriet Jones to begin with. So it really.
So
didn't...
you're just like, okay, good, she's dead.
Yeah, well, yeah, she's gone.
Move on. All right. Okay.
We know who she was.
We knew who she. Nice. Very
Was.
nice. Very nice. Past tense. I see what you did there, Christine. Okay, yeah, I see what you did. Nick, how about you? Any thoughts about Harriet Jones or Wilf or any of the others?
Okay, well, when it comes to Bernard Cribbins, the first thing that comes to mind before I go into another story is Shire Cribbins. But other than that,
I'm not catching that reference.
Ditto.
You want to explain for the class?
Well, for all those who have not seen the movies, The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that's right. He's Frodo,
exactly.
Isn't he? Isn't he the voice of Frodo?
No, but it's just me when I think of the Nazgul going Shire Baggins.
Okay.
I jokingly thought myself Shire Cribbins.
Okay, I'm thinking of something else.
That's just me in my messed up head, but that's another story.
Okay.
But I have very fond memories of both Bernard Cribbins and Penelope Wilton because having been sent VHS tapes from the UK from my grandmother who lived in Brighton.
Rocking the VHS, yes.
And me living in Italy, she would send me TV shows from the BBC which starred Bernard Cribbins and Penelope Wilton. Bernard Cribbins was actually on an old show called Jackanory, where these actors would basically tell stories. It was pre-audiobook era, where they would basically tell you a story, and you'd just have the actor being filmed while they would basically narrate the story to you. And Bernard Cribbins was one of these actors who was chosen for this particular show, and he would do that. And I fell in love with his voice and the way he carried himself. And that was just, I fell in love with him from the get-go. And then, of course, seeing him on Doctor Who, he was amazing in that. And Penelope Wilton was actually in an old TV show called Woof, where a kid would turn into a dog at the drop of a coin, and it would basically it was a whole story about a guy who would turn into a dog, and she was his high school teacher, and that's where I first met Penelope Wilton. Then she went on to do tons of other things and such. And then seeing her again in Doctor Who, I love Penelope Wilton as an actress. She just has such an incredible range, as does Bernard Cribbins. And to see them on Doctor Who and doing what they do, it was just a joy in general.
Yeah, it's cool. Penelope Wilton is one of those actresses that, she turns up in unexpected places, like she's in Shaun of the Dead as Sean's mum. Simon
Exactly.
Pegg's mom, or she's obviously on Downton Abbey, and just other places, and just I think she's really fun to watch. I think
for all those who grew up on British television are huge fans of Penelope Wilton because she has done so much and given so much to British comedy and British entertainment that you can't but love her. Same with Bernard Cribbins.
Yep. Jesse, how about you? Any thoughts on Wilf? Or Harriet Jones, or
what's not to love Wilf? He's so he's
Wilfie.
just such a great grandfather. He's cares so much about his girls, both his daughter and his granddaughter. The paint gun is hilarious. The scenes at the end where he talks to the doctor about how he will remember. He will remember the doctor for Donna is just so touching. I was surprised that we got the Prime Minister back, Yeah. And so I wasn't surprised that she was
after the Christmas invasion.
Yeah, I just was surprised that, and very happy they brought her back, and gave her a chance to kind of redeem herself, which I was glad to see for the character. And it's a small role, but I think it's a pretty important role, and I think she did it well on it, so I like to see that. And unfortunately, Martha's mom is just horrible.
She's the worst.
Yeah, she's.
I think
worst.
she's only outranked as worst by Martha's mom.
Yeah, and
The moms aren't very well represented on Doctor Who. Have you noticed this? Especially during the Russell T Davies era. Jackie's a little bit horrible, especially at first. Yeah. She lightens up a little bit. Sylvia's just horrible. Francine's horrible. It's not really a good look. I have to think Russell T Davies has some mother issues that he needs to work out.
But I do think that it was a nice moment when Martha's mother says, "Oh, it's the end, and you came and checked on me. You saw me," which really made her, you do love me despite all the problems. And and Jackie becomes Jackie, right? It's there. So, great stuff.
No, Jackie. No, don't. No, Jackie. No.
She is.
Just stand off to the side. That can go.
She is. Yes.
Step
exactly.
Step away from the console.
Funny. Exactly.
All right. So somebody's doing some interesting things that I am not aware of right now.
I'm blaming the people without cameras.
Yep. Like your
No, my dog's just going nuts outside.
I see what's going on. All right, Christine.
That's why I usually end up with a dog in my lap during these things, because one of them likes to sit outside the door, scratch, and whine.
All right, Christine, how about you? Thoughts on Wilf or Harriet?
You love saying Wilf and then pausing.
Yeah. Well, I love Wilf.
Who doesn't love Wilf? He's like... it's so rare to get an older character in TV shows nowadays. Especially one that's painted in a good light. You usually visit him in a home or something. But Wilf, he's a got it together type of man. He's the wise old man that you hope to see in shows, and it was very. I love him, and I love every once in a while they do a little bit about the Daleks that. Fans had been talking about for a long time, like when they did the first Dalek episode in the modern era about when they can be defeated by stairs, or they have hover capabilities. They can fly. Okay, well they only see out of that little eye sock just painted over. Well, guess what? I love it when they
deconstruct those myths.
Yeah, when they acknowledge what the fans have been going on about. And say, no, this would happen. So, it's like the unanswered questions get answered. I thank Wilf for giving it a shot. I mean, at least somebody tried.
Exactly. Somebody stepped up. Somebody wasn't just rolling over, at least.
I noticed we didn't actually have Martha on this list. I'm going to assume that we're counting her as part of the Subwave network.
Yeah, we might as well. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that. Yeah, good point. Yeah, let's talk. Yeah,
the rebound girl again.
Yeah, I know. I feel bad because I'm a big Martha fan. I can't believe I forgot about Martha. I'm going to pay for that. I'm going to pay for that one. I know it. All right.
Before when I was on an episode with Martha, I talked about how I did not really like Martha, how she was poorly done, and it wasn't Martha's fault. It was how she was written.
Exactly.
And we mentioned that I do like her when she's not with the Doctor, and I feel like she did a great job in this episode. Or in these episodes, taking charge, having her own life. She's with UNIT now, and she has all these duties, and they've apparently is very important. They put her in charge of some very important stuff in this episode, and at some point apparently learned how to speak German.
Yep. Well, she was with UNIT, so she probably picked up that skill along the way. But
yeah,
but she was willing to end the world with the Osterhagen keys. So. Thanks, Martha, for not blowing us all up.
I mean, she did. She took a page from the Doctor on this one, which I really like. She something a Doctor always does. She gave them a chance, and that's why they didn't just blow up the world, because she took took some learning from the Doctor and gave them a chance. And
she basically bluffed them.
Yeah. I have to say, Harriet Jones, former Prime Minister.
MP. Yes, we know who you are.
She defended her position in this episode, what she had done to turn the Doctor on her. But I have to say that the solution for the problem she was talking about, she said that one day the Earth would be in trouble and the Doctor wouldn't be there. This was her solution? I mean, there's so many other things you could work on. Just destroying the whole planet, that's your solution? I'm glad that she sacrificed herself to try to keep hope alive and keep them fighting, but I feel like it's a good thing she's the former prime minister.
Right.
Yeah, God knows what she would have done in the years she had left before the Doctor apparently got her deposed. And one thing I did like, she did look tired. She definitely did. I don't think she could do this job anymore.
Don't you think she looks tired? Yeah.
That's one of my favorite badass moments of the entire Doctor Who.
Yes.
Six.
Don't
you think she looks tired?
Yeah, it's probably the planet's probably a lot safer now that she's not on it anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's sad to say, but
I'm glad she kind of redeemed herself. I like that.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I liked
she brought everybody together, so so points for that, I guess.
Yeah, Subwave Network. There we go. That communication. That is like I think the number one thing. Yeah. Number one thing that needs to happen for conflict. You solve conflict better with communication rather than blowing everybody up. That's like supposed to be the last solution, right? Not like the first thing we jump to. But I gotta say something about somebody else in this list. Sylvia Noble. What's wrong with you and webcams? I mean,
she thinks they're naughty.
She thinks they're naughty. Like, yes, except clearly we're just having a conversation here, and now we can't participate.
Yeah.
Lack of communication. Thank you.
And how bad do you think Rose wanted to kill Sylvia at that moment? Because here she is, like, my boyfriend is right there, and he can't see me because you wouldn't get a frickin' webcam.
I'm here. She was a little hyper focused in that right there. Hey, there's another person I don't see on this list. Oh no.
No, we're going to talk about Rose.
She's later down.
That's topic number 6, so stay tuned. All right.
Zan, for those following along with the home game.
Exactly. Zan, how about you? Any thoughts on Wilf or Harriet or Sylvia or any of the others? Or Martha?
Sucky moms. Yeah, they're definitely not the greatest moms in the world.
Nope.
I liked Martha. I liked that we finally addressed the whole, you're a doctor of what now? And I'm a doctor of something. I liked her
science.
Yeah, but I'm with you guys. I'm not a big fan of the whole, like, there's a female and she has to be in love with the doctor. I didn't like that about her, and I felt like she was smarter than that. So I thought that her character, I think, was done a little bit of a disservice. So when she does, and Christine, like you said, when she leaves the doctor and joins a unit, that's amazing. I want that spin-off show.
Right.
Where's that spin-off show? So she's...
Get on that big finish.
Definitely is the perfect example of what we were talking about, how you're with the doctor and it makes you a better person. And I think that's what happened with Martha for sure.
I think that spin-off was preempted by her being on Sense8.
There's that too. Yes,
yeah.
Yes, Harriet Jones, who, as like we were saying, was probably killed off to be Isabel Crawley in Downton Abbey. I like her very much as an actress as well. Penelope Wilton. Before I saw her in Doctor Who, the most recent thing I'd seen her in was Shaun of the Dead, and her being in that was the impetus for the best line of Shaun of the Dead. So I thought she was wonderful, and she's one of those people
They're
now.
Coming to kill you, Barbara.
We're coming to get you, Barbara.
Yeah, that's it.
So she's one of those actors that when I see them in something, I sort of refer to them as a character. And when I see her, I'll say, oh, look, it's the Prime Minister.
That's what I do with Downton Abbey, because I go like, oh, it's Harriet Jones.
Exactly. It's, oh, yeah, it's the Prime Minister. So I definitely turned on her, though. It's like, okay, so you're going to blow up the Earth when it's the Daleks, but you're fine with blowing up the Sycorax ship, and that's fine, whatever. I think she's a little too ruthless for her own good. And again, it's probably best that she is the former Prime Minister. I'm not a big fan of that. And as for Wilf, I talked before that I think he's a wonderful character. imagine how horrible Donna would be if she didn't have him as a grandfather.
Right.
You know, she would have been pretty terrible. And he is our proof that in the Doctor Who universe, Peter Cushing never happened.
Because he was one of the companions in the Peter Cushing Doctor Who movies.
Right. He was Peter Cushing's companion. And so no one's talking about that. So if you needed any proof that was out of canon, Wilf is your man.
Exactly.
That he's not Tom, he's Wilf, and the Doctor doesn't recognize him.
Well,
Peter Cushing never existed.
You don't want a Doctor that blew up Alderaan. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. You're not the one who should have evacuated.
Hashtag not my doctor.
Hashtag Van Helsing.
Exactly.
That's my thing is I'm this massive
Hammer horror fan. Yes.
And so I would have loved him as a Doctor, but he's a little too I think cheerful for a Doctor sometimes. But yeah, if we ever needed proof that that's out of canon, Wilf is our proof.
I kind of love that Peter Cushing's Doctor got a shout out in this one. This is awesome. All right.
Time I possibly can, because even though it's not canon, it's awesome because it's Peter Cushing.
Exactly. All right. So before we move on to topic number 5, I got to talk really quickly about Wilf. Wilf is the grandfather I wish I'd always had. He's everything you want in a grandfather. He listens to your problems. He tries to be helpful. He's funny. He doesn't take himself too seriously, and he cares. And he's such a great character. He's probably one of my favorite Russell T Davies characters. And Bernard Cribbins, plays him so well, and he's so likable, and I was so glad that at least in the end of time, and I have my problems with that story, but not the fact that Cribbins gets to be paired with Tennant for most of that episode. It's probably one of the true highlights of that, and it was his final scene in this story where he's talking with the 10th Doctor, and just trying to tell him, just like, hey, look, even though this horrible thing happened with Donna where she lost her memories of her time with him, he's still going to be looking out for the Doctor. He's going to be looking up in the stars, he talks about. And so it's not like he doesn't resent the Doctor for it and for what happened. And he still cares about the Doctor. He cares about what happens. And I think that's a credit to his character. I think. That's just me. All right. Topic number 5. Let's go to Nick first on this one. Reality Bomb, which I think would be a great name for a punk band. Or at least a Doctor Who cover band. And, of course, we're going to talk about Davros and the Daleks. Which would kind of also sound like more of a... That's a 50s band. Davros and the Daleks. That's like a
new wave band.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Richard Hell and the Voivods, Davros and the Daleks. I like it.
Coming up next on the countdown, it's Davros and the Daleks. I'm Casey Kasem.
Moving up from number 29 to number 17.
Keep your feet on the ground and creep looking up at the stars and see all the planets in the sky because Davros brought them into a collective orbit. All right, so Nick, what do you think about Davros and the Daleks in this one?
Okay, well, first off, a question to you, Charles, and a question to everybody, of course, listening right now is: have you ever heard the Daleks in Italian?
No, I have not. Do you have?
Well, here is a little.
You got a snippet?
Here's a little sample of what the Daleks sound like in Italian. There you go.
That's interesting.
So they have like a vocoder.
That's interesting. So now we know what, like, the like if the Daleks were directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
Yes, and may I tell you that I do not suggest anybody ever watching Doctor Who in Italian. I personally was completely disgusted by it, but that's another story. But when it comes to, of course, the Daleks and, of course, good old Davros, It's always a pleasure to see them on screen. Should we say a pleasure / a displeasure? Because knowing their origins, being Jewish myself and knowing who they're based on, it always rings home to me for that reason. And you and I, Charles, we actually discussed this, I believe, on the last episode.
When we talked about Revelations of the Daleks. Yeah.
Of Davros being very much like Yosef Mengele, and of course the Daleks being Nazis. And so, of course, like I said, being Jewish, the Daleks always had a particular resonance with me. And I think in this particular situation, they are just as scary or just as creepy as they were, or as they always have been, for that reason, and even more so, bearing in mind, of course, the resurgence of anti-Semitism and such, and even more so in modern Who, and how they were brought back into modern Who, and as I said, I enjoyed them, and I thought, as I said, that they were really well done. Nicholas Briggs did an incredible job voicing the Daleks. And not to mention, of course, Julian Bleach as Davros, and I think they are the Joker to Doctor Who's Batman, and I think there's no Doctor Who without the Daleks, and of course you wanted to make them the big bad, and it makes total sense that they would be the big bad for this culmination of the Tennant era, and so personally I was very happy with it, and I enjoyed them, and. What can I say? I think it was all very well portrayed. Not to mention the Supreme Dalek himself making an appearance. So it was an interesting, kind of contrast between where you had Davros on one side and the Supreme Dalek on the other. And so I enjoyed it 100%.
Yep, I think so. So Jesse, how about you? Thoughts on Davros and the Daleks?
I ended up getting cut off, but I'm back. So,
welcome back.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yes, Davos, You Blinded Me with Silence would be their single if they were a 50s band. This felt like the same actor we had seen in the past. I'm always confused that, okay, like, are the eyes... He's only using his middle eye, not the two burnt out black shells. I'm very confused by this guy.
Well, that's why he has the third eye, because he can't use the regular eyes because they were burned out by the radiation.
Okay. All right.
Jesse's brain does not compute.
If you say so.
Doctor Who says so.
Yeah, it was good to see him. I love the crazy, Dalek that had been whatever had happened to him.
Dalek Khan, yeah.
Yeah, that
Dalek Khan.
Yeah, the crazy, and seeing that he can see the future, but maybe not, or maybe so. They were great villains. It's good to have. I have stressed in the past, sometimes I feel like the Doctor Who goes to the Dalek well a little too often. Mm-hmm. And so I like it when it's such a thing. It's a little bit. Thank you. It's sprinkled with a little bit maybe of
I sense some dissension in the ranks.
Yeah, but nothing wrong there. Yeah, glad to see them, and they were great villains.
All right. Nicholas Briggs really seems to be having fun with all those Dalek voices in this one, doesn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Christine, how about you? What do you think about the Daleks and Davros?
Well, I noticed that the Daleks seem to be having this similar situation to the Doctor here. They just brought in all of the companions,
Yeah.
all of the different Daleks that we'd been introduced to up to this point. The Cult of Skaro, the Supreme Dalek, and
they're having their own little reunion, aren't they?
And Davros, I think this was the first time we saw him in Modern Who.
It is.
Yeah. They just brought in everybody, so that, it was a nice parallel to what was going on with the humans and Time Lord. And I gotta say though, and this is like classic old sci-fi trope that I never really understood, and I'm glad sci-fi's been getting away from it. But the destroying of everything. What's the point? I don't understand. Like,
because it's cool.
What is there a rule if you kill everybody?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't
it's
get it.
It's very
either.
mustache twirly.
Yeah.
This is like
I didn't get it with.
Well,
with
he talks.
Battlestar Galactica. I didn't get it with anything.
Yeah. Well, he talks about like, I'm going to destroy everything, but only the Daleks will survive it somehow, and they'll reign supreme because everybody else is dead.
Yeah, and then what?
By default.
You're gonna reign over yourselves?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
whatever.
I mean, like
It's not a really thought out plan. No.
I mean, as we were talking about, they're basically the Nazis, and they wanted to be the master race, the only race. They're the only ones worthy of being alive. And I'm like, okay, so you win, and then
what?
I mean, because the
then
only
you weep, for there are no more worlds to conquer.
yeah, it's like
Very well said.
Nice.
they don't really seem to have emotion except for hate, and so basically hate's all they have to live for. Well, once you killed off everything you hate, then what?
Well, then they turn on themselves.
Yeah,
Because I mean, and that's they had that in classic Doctor Who. They had Daleks Civil War because Daleks they decided, well, okay, this group of Daleks isn't pure like we are, so we're just gonna hate on them and attack them.
I feel like it was a lost point that really should have been brought up in these episodes. Like, once they started talking about how they would reign supreme, how they would be the only race left, like, somebody should have said, and then what? And then, like, all you do is hate. So when you have no one else to hate, what are you going to do? Hate each other? Yeah. I think it would have been a great moral question to pose. I mean, that's what sci-fi does. It poses moral questions. But they went super cheesy sci-fi with the Daleks in this episode, and I feel they could have done better. Like, the acting was good, and it was nice to see all of the different Daleks. Dalek Khan was fun. I liked him. I like the whole idea that Dalek Khan turned on the Daleks, but aside from the fun of all that and the silliness when Donna was able to
spin them around
and stuff. That they were fun to play with in that, and of course, really diminishes any scary effect the Daleks might have in the future.
Just a little bit, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt the reality bomb was just a little too much for me. I felt that there are much deeper plot lines villains can go with nowadays, and to go back to that old 60s well was, well, let's call it nostalgic to be nice.
Okay, strange audio from beyond the grave. Okay.
I think somebody's turning the reality bomb on me.
I know. Zan, how about you? Any thoughts on Davros as a classic fan?
Well, as a classic fan, I believe there's no such thing as too many Daleks.
Yes, nice. As she's rocking the Genesis of the Daleks soundtrack.
Yes, the
vinyl
radio show, the original cast recording of Genesis of the
Nice,
Daleks.
nice.
Having grown up watching classic Doctor Who,
Did you geek out over Davros returning?
Oh my God! And the fact that he wasn't a puppet.
Yeah.
He was like a dude. Just wiggle was because that was the thing about the Daleks, is that there was something about them that seemed so incredibly weak. The joke about, we used to joke about it, we will exterminate the first floor of your planet.
Right.
They seemed so defeatable, but they were so not. And there was something about that made them terrifying. The last time I was in the Doctor, and which has some really terrifying moments. They have weeping angels, and you're just like, oh God, go. But then there's a part of that where you walk into this room of nothing but Daleks, just all of the different Daleks, and my heart sank to the floor. It was just this ingrained thing that I was just terrified of them. So I loved when they came back in New Doctor Who, and they could hover, that they actually were a little bit threatening. They're still a little bit goofy,
Right.
but the fact that they're so goofy, but they will just disintegrate you completely, is still fascinating to me. That they can be so ridiculous, but yet so terrifying, and I love that about these characters. And Nick's absolutely right; they are the Joker to the Doctor Who's Batman.
Yep.
And
It's just, yeah.
they're so. And like we're saying, the comparison to the Nazis is perfect. This mindless hate that's just going to come after you with no pity and no remorse. And even if it can't climb stairs, and if it only has one eyeball, and it's going to come at you with a plunger, that plunger will disintegrate you. It will completely vaporize your entire body. And so I was extremely happy to see them again. And like I said, with Davros being an actual guy and not just a puppet that just shakes whenever like he comes to too much of an abrupt stop because there was a peanut shell on the studio floor. Or
right.
something.
Little rickety wobbly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I was like, wow, okay, now Davros is scary, because when I was a kid,
yeah.
Davros was like, what is that? Like that's like a bad.
Well, just because the mask wouldn't really move, especially in the Tom Baker era.
Yes.
With Michael Wisher, that it got a little better with in the Peter Davison era and Colin Baker's, where you had Terry Malloy. You got to see his mouth move at least in that.
Right, but now that he's this actual guy whose hand can do something else and his mouth actually moves, even Davros to me was scary. So, and I was saying before, I felt like Sarah Jane in this, like, oh hell, what's gonna happen? Oh, it's the Daleks. And when there's so many of them, and having been what she's been through, I was there with her to see what she went through, just that whole, how are we going to do this? And because they'd never really been with the Daleks on Earth before. So this being a fight on Earth, it's like, even if something went wrong with the Daleks before, they could just escape.
Yeah, exactly. But
and so,
you brought up a good point with Sarah Jane, because she's one of the few people, apart from the Doctor, really, in this story, that ever experienced Davros before. Like she encountered him. She was in his first story, and so it's kind of like her nightmare to see him come back after all this time.
And can you imagine?
And he's brought like a crap ton of Daleks, and they're going to invade Earth. Right.
Can you imagine having been through it? Having been enslaved by the Daleks and captured by them when you're young, and now you're like in your late 50s, early 60s.
Right. And it's happening again. It's happening again. Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine the terror that was in the pit of her belly when she heard that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And then Davros ends up recognizing her, which is even creepier.
Oh my, out of all of those slaves.
Yep.
He recognizes her.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh, so terrifying. Yeah, the Daleks still scare me. I know they're ridiculous, but they still scare me. Can't help it.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to John. John, what did you think about Davros and the Daleks in this one?
Well, if you can see behind me on my wall of Daleks,
I can't see behind you.
Camera.
Camera.
Is it? But I've loved Daleks since I was a kid, and to see him come back in the new series was fantastic. And then when we finally see Davros, it was like a nice blend between Michael Wisher and Terry Malloy, to where it was. You talk about how with the mouth wasn't moving on the mask and all that. This was like perfect makeup for him.
Yeah.
Julian Bleach did a fantastic job as Davros. And just for him to, like you said, recognize Sarah Jane, he says, "Hey, you were there at the beginning," and that kind of gave me chills the first time I saw it. But I love how the Doctor he's like, "Well, this is a vault, so what are you, the Daleks' pet?" So clearly, the Dalek Supreme and whoever else is in charge, they're just using him for what they need, and just kind of putting him off to the side. I mean, it seems like. He's the father, but he's the father that you want to put off to, like, okay, you're going to go in the next room when everyone else comes over.
Yeah, whatever, Dad. Yeah, you could stay in the living room and watch the news or whatever, and the rest of us are going to be in the basement, and we're going to be, smoking and drinking or whatever, and listening to records or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Now he's all, there's too many young people these days.
Obviously, he wants his race to flourish, but there are so many times that they turn on him. It's ridiculous.
I know.
But I love seeing him come back, though. It was great.
But hey, they're my kids. I got to forgive them. Yeah, they lock me up once in a while. No big deal. Yeah, right? Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sasha.
All right. Nice ad lib on that one. All right.
I'm going to say that Sasha's pro Dalek. So.
I'd watch out if I were you, John. Just saying. If they're pro Dalek. Okay, well, let's move on. Topic number 6. Last topic. Tenrose. The 10th Doctor, clone, half human, half Doctor, all Tennant, and Rose Tyler. So let's talk about those two. Rose Tyler finally gets a doctor of her very own. Yay! And it's I know.
Right?
That was my reaction personally, but
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Okay, so we kind of got around the horn. So let's go to Jesse on this one. What did you think of Tenrose?
When they had announced that Tennant and when they were going to bring back the actors,
yes,
for the big anniversary, we had thought that we would see this alternate universe, speculation Doctor and Rose. It bothers me just a little bit, and I don't know why. I don't have a problem with Matt Smith being in love with River Song, but I have a problem with David Tennant being in love with Rose. It just doesn't seem... it's not fitting. It just ain't fitting. Like when she's like, "Oh, he can't see me," and then when they're running through the field and they get shot, I didn't find it emotional. I just kind of we've all kind of talked about we didn't like a lot of the companion falling in love with the Doctor, and this kind of was it. It almost felt like a shout out to the shippers. Like, oh, let's give a little something to the fans. Everyone wanted the Doctor and Rose to be together. So tell you what, we're going to make that happen and then set them off in their own universe.
So you'll leave us alone.
Yes, that's my thoughts.
Yeah. All right. Rather succinct. I appreciate that. Christine, how about you?
Not being from Classic Who and being, I think, of the generation they were kind of aiming for, I didn't get it.
So even being the target audience,
right?
It doesn't click.
I agree with Jesse. It never felt right. It never felt like I didn't feel the chemistry. I felt the girl crush from Rose,
right?
But I just didn't feel it reciprocated from the Doctor. It didn't sit with me. I'm like, it doesn't feel right. I mean, I didn't grow up with Who and a complete lack of romance in Classic Who, but it still didn't feel right to me. There was something off about it, and it felt more appropriate with Matt Smith and River Song. And even though, it didn't seem like a real relationship between those two, it felt more like a Time Lord relationship. I don't know.
River was more on the Doctor's level than Rose was.
Right. And I was kind of happy to see this happen because I felt like, good, that's all we'll hear about that then. That's going to be it. And I'm glad we're going to stick her in her own little universe and give her her own little Doctor, and we can shut the door and forget it ever happened. Moving on. So that's how I felt about that.
Okay. All right. Zan, how about you?
Yes, I'm also a little sick of the trope of, female companion has to be in love with the Doctor sort of a thing. And River River was a little different for me because, like I said, we find out that River and the Doctor get married in the future, and then we just sort of accept that that's gonna happen eventually.
Right.
We don't actually see that happen, really. I mean, we don't really see, like, it's like Matt Smith's Doctor almost falls in love with her because she told him he's going to, not because of anything that happened between the two of them necessarily.
Right.
So
I know this is supposed to happen, so therefore it's going to happen.
So therefore,
I think
it's
It's a bootstrap paradox.
I think it was more he fell in love with the mystery that is River Song.
There's that too. And yeah, River Song is a little bit more on his level, again with Sonic lipstick and things like that. But with Rose, I was like, really?
And
out of all the companions,
Right.
ever,
I mean, why would he fall for this shop girl from
with her? It's not that she's just a shop girl, and it's not that she's.
But what does she have to offer him?
Whatever. I mean, anything. I mean, she's a wonderful character. It's not that. It's just through all the years, through 900 years, he's resisted the companion until now.
Well, so I'm going to ask that question. Does he? Is because of the different standards of TV at the time, are we going to assume that the Doctor never had a relationship with any of his companions?
I always felt like the companions were sort of like the younger siblings of the Doctor.
Okay.
Not necessarily the children, but like, I'm going to take my little brother and my little sister camping.
Okay.
That he's more of a guardian for them, and he's more of a teacher for them than he is a love interest for them.
Because I feel like Baker and a couple of his companions, not necessarily Jane, but
he's the guy who takes them on field trips.
But the other one, who's the one that they had a relationship in real life, Charles?
Oh, that would be Tom Baker and Lala Wolf.
Tom Baker.
Yeah. See, I feel like that there was a
But they were their characters were also both Time Lords.
Yeah, so I think there was an undercurrent there, and I also think that sometimes Baker played that he may have a relationship with his companions. I feel that a little bit. So go ahead.
Yeah, he was definitely very play things on the cuff, but at the same time, I just felt like this is not the show I want to see. I don't want to see this romance show. Hang on one second. I don't know. I sucked in some air the wrong way. I don't know what happened. Anyway, it wasn't what I wanted to see. And then I feel like the Tenrose Doctor clone is like, that's just such a, hey, I know you want a Cabbage Patch doll, but here's this one that your mom sewed for you.
Oh, snap.
And it just feels so like such a not equal replacement that it almost was just as heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's a consolation prize.
Yes, and it's like worse than Rice-A-Roni.
Yes.
I understand.
Here's a copy of our home game.
Right, this is a copy of the home game with missing pieces. And it's like, I understand that Rose and the Doctor can never be together. It's the hero paradox where, I'm a loner dotty, a rebel, that whole sort. I can't love you because then that makes you a target. I mean, all those tropes that we know. I understand that, but why does she have to have this crappy copy? It's like almost worse for her.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you've all been in love, and the person you're in love with, it's not what they look like, it's who they are. And it feels so unsatisfying. A lot of it just feels so unsatisfying. I'll take as much Rose as I can get, but it just feels very unsatisfying.
Yep. Okay, I think that's fair. All right, John, any thoughts from you on the 10th Doctor, Clone and Rose?
I think by this time I'm just tired of the whole Dr. Rose thing, and she was his companion two companions ago. Just let it go. I don't know, the whole.
You don't think it wraps a bow on that whole storyline?
I don't know. I don't think so, because up until he whispered in her ear, she still wasn't convinced, and she just saying that's not her doctor.
Right.
Yeah, I just didn't care for it.
It rang kind of hollow for you, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, that's fair. Nick, how about you?
Okay, well, coming from the land of love and the land of where love is made,
Yes.
I have to say that
That's amore.
exactly, it's all about amore over here in Italy. But the thing is, I feel that New Who is a victim of its times. As in, when you make a TV series in the 2000s, you kind of have to have a love interest because you have to cater to a particular kind of audience. But the beauty, I always thought of Doctor Who was the fact that there was never a relationship between the Doctor and the companions. As in, I kind of almost liken it to Dante Alighieri and the Inferno, where he has this incredible love for Beatrice. They are never together, but there is a platonic love between the two of them. They're never able to consume their love. And I feel that it would have been best left alone, to where the companion might pine for the Doctor, but it is never reciprocated, and there's never consumption of that love. And that's why it kind of grates on me to see things like the Rose Doctor relationship and such, because I think it just is alien to the show. And I think that was why the show stood out compared to other shows going on, is that why does there have to be a relationship or a love relationship? It doesn't have to be that way. People can go on with their lives and enjoy the show, even though there isn't a love relationship. And so I was not particularly happy with that particular thing. As I said, I feel that a companion can pine for the Doctor, and we know that, of course, the Doctor has had sex. If you go, of course, to William Hartnell, he has
a granddaughter.
He is called grandfather, so, of course, he has had relations. But at the same time, I just felt that it was a little bit tacked on, a little bit forced. But I feel it was more of a question of the show being a victim of its time. Other than that, I love, of course, Billie Piper for what she did in the character of Rose, and David Tennant. I mean, God bless David Tennant. But it's just that I was not comfortable with there being, shall we say, it going past a platonic relationship.
So, would it have worked better for you had Rose been older, or if she had come from a different background, like something similar to a Time Lord, or perhaps a character from the future that was a little bit more worldly?
As we were mentioning before, it makes more sense, the Tom Baker and Romana, it makes more sense because, of course, they're both Time Lords, so
Right.
They are timeless, as it were.
They're peers.
Exactly, and so that would make more sense to me. I think it was not a question of the age. I think it was just a question of wanting to make Doctor Who contemporary, because all the other TV shows you have going on, it's all about, you have a TV show where you have the hero and you have the love interest. And so I think it was a question of, we have to cater to a certain kind of audience, so we have to have a love story. And so that was my impetus and my thoughts going into that. But like I said, I think it was just a question of being a victim of its time, really.
Yep. All right. Anybody else got any more thoughts on this topic, or the story before we move on?
So
Yeah.
Charles, hang on. You didn't share your feeling about Tenet Light and Rose. So I want to hear your take on it.
Okay. My really quick take is that it does feel a little bit more like fan service to me, this relationship, or at least with the introduction of the 10th Doctor clone. I get that Russell T Davies, Rose Tyler, was obviously his character. He wanted to give her at least an ending, at least for this point in the character. Obviously, they bring her back in Big Finish and whatnot later on. But as far as we knew at the time, this was going to be the last time we saw Rose. So he kind of wanted to give her a happy ending, and I get that. But I think the way that it was done, and with essentially the Doctor being half Donna Noble, it does feel cheap, and it doesn't feel like, okay, you wanted Rose and the Doctor, but you didn't really give Rose the Doctor. You gave her this kind of knockoff. Like we were talking about with Zan, like the consolation prize. And so it feels like it's lacking something. And this is on top of the fact that, at least the way I've kind of viewed Rose is, I like Rose as a character, but I think Rose would have been better had, she just not been so obsessed with the Doctor. Like if, it's like she made the Doctor her world. And when he wasn't around, there wasn't, like, what was Rose without the Doctor? And we really didn't get to see that from her. Essentially, the Doctor defined her. And I think that was the problem with the character. And that's why I think, at least with Martha, the love was unrequited. And then once she got away from the Doctor, we got to see who Martha was. But we really didn't get to see Rose, what she became, without the Doctor. And essentially we never really will, because, hey, she's got her own Doctor. So that's the way I kind of view it.
Actually, I feel like we did get to see Rose without the Doctor briefly during Turn Left. And it was like the whole time where Donna was getting these brief interactions with Rose, it was like that. I forget the term, the theory about having on a TV show two women talking to each other for a certain amount of time without bringing up a man.
The Bechdel test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that episode finally passed it. And, like, that whole situation, Rose was there to solve Donna's problem, this thing on her back. And I feel like she felt so much more bearable in that episode, and so much more of her own human being, her own person. And I liked her there, but then
she backslides.
Even coming right off of that episode and into these two episodes, she's back in this universe, and where's the Doctor? Oh, it's all about the Doctor. The Doctor, the Doctor. Oh, he can't see me. Oh, Doctor. I'm like, wait, where's the girl I just saw, like, last episode? Because that girl was kind of
I liked her.
put together. Yeah, she was kind of well-rounded. Now you've gone flat. I don't get it. So, yeah, I think it's sad. Like, you say that it was a victim of, like, the times where you have to have a relationship. I think they finally solved that problem when they brought in Amy and Rory. And I thought that was a well-done romantic relationship on Doctor Who without it being a companion pining for the Doctor.
Yeah, because the companions are pining for one another. Mm. And the Doctor's just off, like, okay, I'm off doing wacky stuff.
And
being the Doctor, I'm being the madman in the box. So if you want the love interest, well, you've got the companions being in love with each other, and and it works much better.
Exactly.
I agree. It's a very good point. Excellent point. All right. Anything else about the story? I know we talked a lot about this one, so not sure what's left, but anything else that we're overlooking from anybody? Nope. Bueller? Anything? Anyone?
Was there a Bueller in this?
Maybe.
He was an
extra. Yeah.
Might I interject for one moment?
Please do.
The other thing that I wanted to also mention was the fact that I think it was a terrible disservice to Rose's character that she played the jealous lover when everybody was on the Skype call and she was like, "What about me? I was first," and everything else.
Right.
I did not like that.
Who's she?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so it felt like the jealous girlfriend / jealous lover, which I did not approve of at all.
Well, it's just like she wasn't when she was with Sarah Jane the first time in School Reunion.
Exactly.
Where she gets really jealous, and so does Sarah Jane.
Exactly. And she was like, "I was here first,"
right?
And I did not approve of that at all, because like everybody was
they're competing. Why are they competing with one another?
Exactly.
John finally appears out of nowhere.
Hi.
Hi, John.
Hi.
and she could not be heard. She was like, "I was here first."
He found the on switch.
Yeah, so that was another thing which I thought was more of a disservice to Rose's character than doing her a favor.
I really feel like someone in charge of writing several of these episodes, who will remain Russell T Davies, doesn't really understand how women work in relationships, And I really feel like the whole Rose and the doctor situation, and I feel like I'm going to get some nasty hate mail if I were to give out my mail about this, but I really feel like this was his desire to have a relationship with someone way too young for himself. And we got to see it horribly played out across this whole era, this Tennant era. And I think that might have been the uncomfortableness that some of us felt there. It didn't sit right, and I think a lot of us didn't appreciate it.
So your kind of take on this is ew.
Yeah, very much.
Okay.
I'm with Christine on that one for sure, 100%.
All right.
Because it was so out of character for Rose in general. Seeing what we'd seen of Rose, it just seemed very out of character.
Yeah, it's just obviously it could have been handled, I think, much better. And I think we're all probably in agreement with that. It could have been handled better. All right. Anything else about the story anybody wants to talk about before we move on? No? All right. I know we're running long. Surprise. But I tried to do as best as I could. But I do want to, I know we want to talk about some favorite lines. So, for the sake of time, why don't everybody just, if you got one or two of your favorite lines? I know we got to force you to choose. I know Christine hates that.
Oh no, Christine didn't do her homework, so.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I told you that.
Busted.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, I'm going to let everyone else speak, so to keep us moving along.
You got the fail horn. All right. So go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, I'm going to pass to kind of keep us moving along.
Okay.
So...
All right.
Zan,
well, the gentleman in the red
DJ?
passes. All right.
Yes.
Zan, how about you? I know you're one of the things I love about Zan is that she loves quotes, and we talk about them all the time on Ghostwood. So
Yes, we do.
I got to think you've got one or two in your pocket right now.
I think at the time I first saw this one, because of my love of Torchwood, my favorite one is "Are You from an Old Welsh Family?" Just because of what it does for the story.
Right.
And I just love that he, of everything he's seen, he remembers the maid at the funeral home in that one episode. I think it's great.
That's hilarious. Any
well,
others?
You did too.
That's true. You spotted that right off too. Any others, Zan?
Not really. I do love the way Sarah Jane delivers the "You're So Young," and I think the way she delivers that is so, you can really tell the angst in her voice about this, the helplessness and the hopelessness she feels, I think is wonderful delivery. And I think it tells you everything you need to know about the Daleks. She doesn't say you're going to die. She just says, you're so young. This is it. We're done here.
Excellent. All right, go ahead, Christine.
Christine has a question.
Christine raises her hand.
Well, just the fact that the Daleks got to say, "Yes, we know who you are."
Uh-huh.
Right.
That was amazing.
So they reset Harriet Jones's catchphrase. All right, John, how about you? Any favorite quotes?
My favorite has to be when they're explaining to the group about how the three of them are basically the same, and Rose says, "Well, there's three of you now," and Jack says, "You have no idea what I'm thinking of right now."
You totally stole one of
Not
mine.
now, Jack,
You.
not
I was hoping nobody was going to get that.
You beat me to that one. All right.
You just they have plungers, Captain Harkness. Plungers. Where are you gonna put-
It's Captain Jack. Like that. I'm sure that's going to be a bonus to him, right? He's up for anything.
I want to know. Please don't look that up on Urban Dictionary and tell me what it means.
I'm sure there's fanfic about it.
Well, you said it. There is fanfic about it.
All right.
Yeah, if you can think of it, there's fanfic about it.
Exactly. If your brain can come up with it, you're right. Exactly. It's out there. John, any others? Any other quotes?
That's it.
All right. Nick, how about you? Any quotes?
Yeah, I have a double whammy.
All right, go for it.
On one hand, I've got Jack who goes, "Whoa, what happened? Was it the rift? When? Yanto, you okay?" And Yanto answers, "No broken bones, slight loss of dignity, no change there then." And
I love Yanto.
Nice.
And the other one is between Wilf and Sylvia, where Wilf goes, "It's gone dark. It's them aliens. I'll bet my pension. What do you want this time, you green swine?" And she goes, "Dad," and he answers, "Look, you get back inside, Sylvia. They always want the women."
I love that line. Wilf is the best at that. I love that. Great quotes. All right, I'm going to do a couple here myself. One from Davros, where Davros is essentially taunting the 10th Doctor. He goes, "The man who abhors violence, never carrying a gun. But this is the truth, Doctor. You take ordinary people and you fashion them into weapons. Behold your children of time transformed into murderers. I made the Daleks, Doctor. You made this." Very cold.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. And then this little bit with Wilfred and the Doctor toward the very end of the episode, or end of the story, The Journey's End, where Wilfred goes, "Oh, Doctor, what about you now? Who have you got? I mean, all those friends of yours." The Doctor replies, "They've all got someone else. Still, that's fine. I'm fine." Wilfred says, "I'll watch out for you, sir." The Doctor says, "You can't ever tell her." Wilfred replies, No, but every night, Doctor. When it gets dark and the stars come out, I'll look up on her behalf. I'll look up at the sky and think of you."
No.
Yep. And the tears come.
Exactly. Yep. And everybody's correct.
Everybody goes for the Kleenex. Yep, it's Kleenex box time.
Yes,
And that's
indeed.
when everybody said, "Wilf should be a companion."
Yep. And he was for the end of time. You know.
And the man's going to be turning 91 this year, so I definitely say big up to the man who's going to be turning 91.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just really baggy. He came back for a big finish. He's going to be doing 10th Doctor audios in the
Exactly.
Yep. So can't wait for that. Can't wait to listen to this.
90, almost 91 and still going.
All right. All right. Ratings time. So everybody, hopefully Christine has a rating. All right. Jesse, let's start with you first. What's your rating for this one, my friend?
I give it 9 out of 10 Donna Noble songs.
Ooh, that's good. All right. Christine, how about you? What's your rating for this one?
Oh, please don't shoot me. This is mostly to do with the Daleks. 7.5 out of 10 paintball guns.
Ooh, rather low coming in from Christine. Zan, what's yours?
9 out of 10 texts from Donna's girlfriends.
Nice.
Love that. Love it.
Excellent. John, how about you?
I'm going 9 out of 10 hands in a jar.
Excellent. Very good. Nick, how about you?
I'm giving it 9 out of 10 Dalek prophecies.
Excellent. I'm going to go with a consensus on this one. I'm going with 9 out of 10 Osterhagen keys.
Okay.
So
Don't use that key.
Playing the part of the Russian judge, Christine.
Hey, one of the reasons I don't watch classic sci-fi is the mustache-twirling villains. They're not
Absolutely.
my thing.
Absolutely.
they're so good. They chew the scenery up so well. Nom, 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 nom.
I
It's
like
good.
the scenery if somebody put a lot of work into it.
Yeah. All right. Reverse the polarity time. So really quick, obviously we're running long. I realize this. So just really quickly, obviously, let's go for the obvious one. Reverse the polarity. We're going to reverse the polarity of the neutron flow back to 1975 with Season 12, Genesis of the Daleks. The fourth serial from Season 12, written by Terry Nation, which, of course, featured the very first appearance of Davros And that's right. And Sarah Jane's first encounter with him. And, of course, the definitive Tom Baker moment where he has two wires together and holds them up together and says, "Have I that right?" When he's given the ethical choice of taking the Daleks off the board once and for all, probably not. And or does he not kill them and commit genocide? So as John holds up two wires together, nice points to John for holding up two wires together on that one. So,
Charles, might I also add the Dalek invasion of Earth, which might be a good one too?
That's another good one. Yes, from the William Hartnell era. Yeah, the very tenth story of Doctor Who. That's a classic and one of my favorites from the Hartnell era. Actually, I think that is my favorite story from the Hartnell era. I love that one. All right. So yeah, really quick. Yeah,
just check the Daleks.
Genesis of the Daleks. Yeah, this should be an automatic. I shouldn't even have to tell you people to watch Genesis of the Daleks after watching this one. All right. Listener feedback. Now, got a few ones came in from some of our favorite pen pal people. So, Jesse, I sent you the password so that now, yes, you can go and access our email account so you can read those if you want. So, do you want to read one or you want me to?
I will read Holly's.
Okay, go for it.
And we'll take turns.
That works for me.
Yeah. Holly Mack said, "Hey, Charles, Jesse, and fellow Next Stop Everywhere companions." Oh, she gave a shout out to our guest companions.
That's right.
Out of all the 2-part episodes that New Who has had, I have to say that these are right up there. I can remember watching these on good old Sci-Fi Channel before the name change and remembering how they almost spoiled Journey's End with their own Next Time trailer. All the companions of the Torchwood crew, man, I miss them. That's what Big Finish is for. That they were able to have them come back and Jack trying to flirt but failing and him not wanting to hug Donna was interesting. And man, Donna, that had me tearing up when I first watched it and still does. Here's hoping later on down the line with Time Lord tech, she can get her memories back without any bad side effects. It would have been awesome to have her bump into the 11th, 12th, or 13th Doctor. Davros being up to his usual Dalek
self, yes.
Yeah, the Doctor's chopped off hand from the Christmas invasion coming into play and having a non-Time Lord Doctor I did not see coming. And all the companions helping the Doctor pilot the TARDIS and all the planets home was a great scene. I'll wrap it up here. Be talking to you soon. Holly from Wisconsin.
Awesome. Thank you, Holly, for writing in.
So
glad you joined us here for our 150th episode. You're one of our most consistent feedback providers, and we always appreciate you writing into the podcast. You always give some great thoughts. Next,
and she reminded me of another favorite quote.
What's your favorite quote? What's your other favorite quote?
And Jackie, no, just no.
yeah.
That's a great moment. All right, Hannah Scarapa. One of our newer listeners who's always had some nice things to say about the podcast, writes in about Stolen Earth Journey's End. Greetings, Charles, Jesse, and guest companions. So the guest companions getting a shout out. Dude, we're getting the band back together is the phrase I would use to describe this story. As Russell T. Davies' final proper season finale, I would say that this is by far his most ambitious. In these 2 episodes alone, we get the return of Rose, a crossover with both spin-offs, and an insane plan by Davros to shatter the whole of reality. Why hasn't Fathom Events done a screening for the 10th anniversary of this, which I consider to be superior in every possible way to the end of time? Agreed.
Yep.
One of my favorite scenes in this story is with all the Children of Time, as Davros puts it, piloting the TARDIS. That's a great scene. Yep. Let's see, what else? She goes, this also contains, in what is my view, the most gut-wrenching exit in all the modern series. Agreed. Poor Donna. I find the scene where she leaves horrible to watch, not because it's poorly acted or written, but because it has Donna pleading for the Doctor not to wipe her mind. She makes it abundantly clear that she would rather die than go back to being that person she loathed. What doesn't help is that only minutes earlier we see Donna at her highest heights, as she disarms Davros and sends the Daleks spinning out of control around the decks of the fleet. Seeing that moment makes her downfall all the more tragic, as if Sophocles penned a Doctor Who episode. That's rather insightful. Now with that inside, here's my greatest nitpick of the story, the meta-crisis Doctor. It seems he has only two functions. One, to destroy the Dalek fleet so our heroes won't have blood on their hands. And two, to give Rose a happy ending so that the Dr. Rose shippers of that time don't complain. That's what we're talking about, right? So just what we spent like 2 hours talking about. All right. So his existence was too fan-servicey, and this coming from someone who enjoys the Doctor and Rose adventures. Also, if he has very human anatomy with a Time Lord brain, then how come he's fine and Donna isn't? Ooh, good question.
Yes.
Does he have more? Does he have more in his genome to support a brain like that? I wish that there was a line of two or two explaining his biology more. I also am not fond of how the Doctor proper didn't really give Rose a say in the matter. She could have friends in the main universe for all we know. It was pretty much, quote, "Here's my conveniently mortal clone who has just committed mass genocide. Have fun spending the rest of your life babysitting him. Bye."
Wow.
Nice. Very good. Bearing that in mind, the concept of a half-human clone of the Doctor is interesting. I just don't like the execution here. Putting all of that aside, the finale is brilliant. It's my third favorite of New Who, and it's perfect for a 150th episode. Yay. It's a newer listener. I'm a newer listener, but still going through your back catalog and loving it. You strike the perfect balance between being critical and upbeat perfectly, and you're also willing to listen and respect opinions. You don't necessarily agree with them all the time, unlike a select few people on YouTube who have made it their life's mission to tear the show apart nowadays. But I won't name them because I don't want to give them the clicks and ad revenue. Nice. Well played. Well played.
Thank you. We try.
Yeah, we do our best. I think that my favorite episode you've done thus far is the one where you've folks covered Twice Upon a Time. That was a good one. I give your show 10 severed 10th Doctor hands out of 10. Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Please go to iTunes and write that if you could. We need the rating.
Shameless plug by Jesse. All right. Keep
Yeah.
being amazing. And as always, I look forward to future discussions. Best regards, Hannah Scarappa. P.S. I'm sorry about my long email last time. Had I known you were sick, Charles, I would have shortened it.
No. Don't
You
shorten it.
You didn't know, so
Yeah.
no big deal.
We love it.
It's all right.
We would rather it be too long and we can edit it than not hearing from y'all too short. All right, so Paul Beck sends us a lovely one.
He even
Hey,
sent us
Charles and
sent
Jesse.
us a photo.
He did send us a photo. I was going to mention that at the end.
Yeah.
Him and his lovely bride with a Dalek between them. It's very cute. Hey, Charles and Jesse. Both Linda and myself wanted to take the time to send you both our heartfelt congratulations on this huge milestone of 150 episodes. We have been listening to you from the very beginning and look forward to every new episode. That is dedication, and we appreciate it. Your podcast is both entertaining and informative and the best around.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work. It is much appreciated. Kindest regards always. Lots of love, Paul. And as we said, there is a lovely picture of him and I assume his bride Linda, with the little Dalek between them. It's just precious.
I don't know if you see that. I'm holding it up to the webcam right now.
Yes,
so hopefully.
I did.
All
Yes.
right.
It's a little blurry, but we got it.
Yeah.
Good.
But yeah, very cool. And thank you, Paul, and thank you, Linda, for the kind words. Always appreciate that. And we always appreciate all our people that write in on Facebook or by email or just check us out on Twitter. We love hearing the feedback, and that's why we try to incorporate in the show, get you guys involved, and make you part of the show, because we wouldn't be doing this without you guys. So I'm sure Jesse would back me up on that.
Absolutely.
All right. So if you want to be like Holly, Hannah, and Paul, and please do, you can drop us a line. Next Stop Everywhere, smg@gmail.com. Don't forget the SMG. That's nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com, or you reach us on Twitter at nextstopsmg, or on Facebook, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who Podcast. Or you can reach us on the Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere Podcast. Try and post maybe some things about this special 150th episode here shortly. So please check that out. We definitely appreciate it. Shameless plugs. Got to go around the horn on this one, but first I got to go with my partner in time, Jesse. Where can they reach you on the interwebs?
I am going to keep this quick. So go to a previous episode. You can hear my long drive pitch, but for now, find me on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. Christine.
You can find me on Twitter at C_Peruski. You can like my Facebook page, Christine Peruski. And you can find me on Behance, also at Christine Peruski.
And Zan, how about you?
I can be found on the Twitter and the Instagrams at Udinax19. That is, of course, Xanadu spelled backwards and then the number 19.
Nice. Yep. Oh, and maybe a certain podcast. Hint, hint, nudge,
well,
nudge.
that's true. If you want to reach me, you can look at the Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast pages on Facebook, Twitter, and ghostwoodcast at gmail.com.
Nice.
And, let us know what sort of Twin Peaks Doctor Who crossover fans there are in the world besides me and Charles.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Lonely here. We need more people.
John, how about you?
Mainly through Facebook. I know you've put my link up on most of the everything that's on there, and then of course the Ohio Type 40. It's still getting a lot of new likes thanks to the show. I do appreciate that, and that's pretty much it. Apart from that, I just work 55 hours a week.
Well, you're kind enough to be a part of this podcast, and so if we can get a few extra listeners, and fans your way on Facebook, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear it. So
I appreciate
everybody check out Ohio Type 40 on Facebook. Nick, how about you, my friend?
Well, for all you fans of country music, if you're interested, of course, in fans of country music, you can check us out on the Whiskey and Cigarettes Show. That's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. We are live on both FM and net. And, of course, if you go to our website, whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and, of course, Twitter. So always happy to have new listeners, and we'll be more than happy to check out your requests if you're interested in country music.
Excellent. Please check out Nick's show. Nick, check out Whiskey and Cigarettes. I'm sure Nick would definitely appreciate that. And, of course... Absolutely. And, of course, got to do my spiel here. So, as for me, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. Of course, my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee.
And hot.
Hot.
Exactly. Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere. Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, all kinds of comic book sci-fi news of my other podcasts for Southgate Media, including the aforementioned Ghostwood Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan, or the Phantom Zone podcast that I do with Jesse, where we're currently wrapping up Season 2 of Krypton, talking about that. And we'll be back in Titan's Tower on Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, here in about a month, talking Titans Season 2, if you're a big DC Universe fan. Other than that, I think that's pretty much all my bases covered. But we definitely appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for listening to Next Stop Everywhere. We really appreciate it. I know I talk about that a lot, but we do. We wouldn't be here without you guys. And thankfully, we've done 150 of these things. We're going to try and do 150 more. So consider yourselves warned, officially. Next time at Next Stop Everywhere, I know I kind of put turn left on the agenda, but it looks like we're going to be doing something different for episode 151. So I'm going to throw you a little curveballs. Holly reminded me that we're going to be doing, we're going to talk Battlefield, which Zan maybe find interesting because, hey, it's got her favorite companion, Ace, and the Sylvester McCoy Seventh Doctor.
Nice.
So, yeah, we're going to be talking about that on episode 151 of Next Stop Everywhere as the journey continues with Holly McMiller, a.k.a. Holly Mack herself, finally breaking from the email and actually recording with us for the very first time on Next Stop Everywhere.
Yay,
so,
Holly.
Yay. Everybody give her a big round of...
Yeah, I want to join in.
Yep.
With Charles had many nice things to say, and I want to echo them. 5 years ago, when Rob Southgate reached out to me and said, "Hey, we want a Doctor Who podcast to join the Southgate Media family. We're doing a family one, but we want an adult-themed one, something more. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Yeah. Do you care if I have a co-host?" And they said, "No, absolutely." So my first call was to Charles and said, "Hey, Charles, do you want to do a podcast with me?" And Charles, how do you do a podcast? Yeah. We'll figure it out. And so 5 years later,
commence the anxiety.
It has been absolutely a joy talking Doctor Who, both classic and new, with Charles and all of you who joined us tonight. That is so awesome. I know you guys have stepped in to do some fill-in guest companions. I appreciate each of you. It was nice to meet up with some old friends. Always love talking to Christine, John, Zan. It's so great. And Nick, we got to get you back on Set Listing Bruce. And Charles.
No. He's mine. We're keeping him here.
Charles, you know how much I love you. You and Lori are two of my dearest friends, and I just hope we can keep talking Doctor Who for a long time.
I totally want that. Jesse, you brought me into this crazy podcast thing so much, and I got into it, and I brought Zan into this crazy podcast thing. So we kind of owe you for that, and as a way to kind of circumvent therapy a little bit. It's free therapy, as we've talked about on Ghostwood. But I can't imagine doing this podcast without you. And when you recently decided to step back for understandable reasons with your wife Linda and everything, I was thrown a little bit of a curveball. But we started to do the special guest companions thing this year, and I think it's worked out pretty well.
I think it's worked out really well.
We've gotten to meet a bunch of great people. I got to meet John. I get to meet Nick. We had Christine back. And Zan came in. We talked, we got to talk the Seventh Doctor era, which I rarely get to talk about here. So, just all you wonderful people, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. I know I go on about that, but it means a lot. And thank you so much for being a part of this special 150th episode. Everybody out there, I hope you had fun listening to this. I know we talked a lot, but we had fun. At least I had fun, and I hope everybody out there had fun as well. So
hopefully the audience had as much fun as we did recording it.
I'm sure the pause button was used maybe once or twice so they could go to the bathroom. But thanks again, and we do appreciate it. And we'll be back for 151 of Next Stop Everywhere. We're going to talk Battlefield with Holly Mack. Going to be joining me here this time. Thank you so much, guys. And we'll see you next time right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Bye, everybody. Yay!
Happy anniversary, guys.